debating people online about kind of, I suppose, people that are against.
We do know that.
No, I'm not.
I never had any issue with, and like even like my girlfriend there, she was a vegetarian for a year when we were going out, like, and I had no issue with it. She had no issue with me.
Yeah.
Like, that was where I drew. It was people that were kind of attacking us.
I'm a bit. I don't know. I done home economics in school, like, for leaving cert many moons ago. But I always remember reading about vegetarian and vegans would be low in vitamins and stuff. And I'd be like,
amino acids and all this other stuff. Yeah.
We
iron
just
and
need
everything
one
else,
of
but I
the,
do
do you know the like papery Agriland bags, like these?
No.
No, she like that, and it was the same. Like my she was low on
moderation.
iron, and she was you could cut back on meat, like, but you still need it, like.
Yeah.
But like she was deficient in everything.
Yeah.
Like, she was severely deficient.
That's what.
So like, I think it
do you know what? I'll take
really
this
affect your
one.
health, like, so.
It's a bit dusty
Yeah, eventually
anyway.
she said, right.
Hello and welcome to day 3 of the National Ploughing Championships here in Screggan, Tullamore, County Offaly, and welcome to Agriland's coverage. We're about to start the live stream from 12 to 3 today on the final day of the ploughing, and today will tell us a lot about the competitors out in the ploughing plots. But tune into Agriland because we'll have the Taoiseach on, we'll have a customs dog, we'll find out how they actually detect raw meat hides in luggage in Dublin Airport. Super interesting. And we'll have loads of panel discussions, including on farm safety, generational renewal, and let's not forget the women in agriculture, which we'll be featuring today as well between 12 and 3. Also, tune into our socials all across Instagram, Facebook, X and TikTok today to see if you know anyone out and about in the crowd at ploughing.
Well, it's the final day here at the National Ploughing Championships. We're out and about again, bringing you all of the action across the site in Screggan. We're going to be out in the ploughing fields. We're going to be meeting loads of different competitors. We're going to be meeting people who are visiting the site, and we're going to be meeting Casey as well and telling you about the job that he does with revenue. So stay tuned.
So stay tuned to the Agriland live stream for all the coverage of the final day of the 2025 National Ploughing Championships.
Welcome to day 3 of the National Ploughing Championships here in Screggan, Tullamore, and to Agriland's live streaming from 12 to 3 today in the Agriland stand here. A little bit more drizzly, as you saw. I just was outside with my jacket on, come back inside and took it off. And we hope that the weather stays somewhat okay today. A little bit of drizzle won't bother us too much. It won't get too mucky. But we're starting off today to talk about generational renewal, something that across every single panel that we've had this week, people have been discussing succession, young farmers and generational renewal, because that is the future of farming, and Agriland's theme this week has been farming for the future. I'm very delighted today to have with us on our panel. We have, of course, TikToker Finn Walsh, a young farmer himself, and we're delighted that you're here. We also have Louise Lennon from Irish Rural Link and Hugh McEnany from Teagasc to talk all things generational renewal. But first of all, I might go to yourself, Hugh, in Teagasc. In a farming context, in terms of the education that you provide to young farmers, how eager or engaged are they to learn as much as they can and then either, take over a family farm or find some new enterprise for themselves?
Agreed with that. Look, we're running the education courses in all the major colleges. Definitely the ones in the south, southeast are more or less full. There's massive engagement between the young farmers. Their massive desire to the new technologies, the more up-to-date stuff, the cutting-edge stuff of farming, let it be the simulators, let it be the moo calls, let it be the cow collars, and they're much more engaged in technology and how to use the technology on the farms to improve the profitability of the farms, and again that whole work-life balance of making things easier for themselves.
Now, one of the recommendations in the generational renewal plan that was published earlier this week by the Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, was that Teagasc Advisory Services should develop a dedicated generational renewal programme. Do you think that could be beneficial?
Absolutely. I'm part of a smaller team within Teagasc and the Farm Management Unit. We have run last week a Generational Renewal Week where we had 3 webinars and we had 2 farm walks solely dedicated to generational renewal. We'd like to be able to expand that based on funding and bring it out to each individual area unit in Teagasc, and to have a dedicated person in that unit dealing with generational renewal, and then supported by a team of specialists.
Very interesting. I'll go to Finn Walsh next, a TikToker, but also a farmer, and I'll get straight to the point in your own phrase, lest I digress. But Finn, tell me about, a lot of people have seen you on social media and you give different stories about different things that are happening at the time, but you're also farming and there's a lot of work going on, be it farm and contracting and so on. So tell me about your own situation, your own setup at home first, and then what you see as the challenges for you or other young lads or lassies who are farming and the challenges they have.
Yeah, so at home, we're milking at home as well. We've got 90 cows. My younger brother, who's out there somewhere, is milking at home. He took the job. I got kicked out of the nest. So I took a job out West Limerick. There's about 300 cows. I'm working there full time. And I suppose at home, the only benefit for my father and the only kind of negative thing for my father is he's spoiled for choice. He got 3 sons and a daughter, 3 sons that want to farm, 1 daughter who wants nothing to do with it. And he can't, obviously it's a massive decision to make, or whether he wants to give it to the 3 of us, or adapt it, or something, or change. Like, there's a lot of other people who are in worse positions than him. They have no one that want to take it on. And they're sitting around scratching their heads and they don't know what they're going to do. So it's a massive conversation to have. Obviously, it'll be still difficult for my father, because I suppose he doesn't want the 3 of us knocking lumps out of each other, and at the same time wants to make sure that the farm is carried on and it goes on to the next generation after us. So it's a hard conversation to have, but it's an important one to have.
Yeah, I suppose that is a unique one in your situation, where there's actually 3 very eager to take it over, and I suppose a 90 cow farm at the moment is not going to sustain 3 different families or 3 different incomes, so you'd have to work out something in that sense. The same challenges that you know other young farmers are experiencing, in terms of you went off into another 300 cow farm in West Limerick. What are your friends saying to you about farming, if they're in farming?
Yeah, so like I've plenty of friends in farming, and obviously the friends that I have that are in farming, they're all I suppose they are going to inherit their farm down the line. I do have a number of friends that are in farming that aren't from a farm background, but they're gone into farms. Some of them don't have a next generation, they don't have someone to pass it on to. So that's something maybe down the line they might come up with some kind of they might work out some kind of a partnership with them, or lease the farm out. They're not 100% sure what way they're going to work it out. Yeah. But nearly everyone that I'm friends with all wants to have their own, I suppose they want to make their own path in farming at some stage in their life. They don't always want to work for another person. Yeah,
of course, yeah. Louise Lennon from Irish Rural Link. When we talk about generational renewal within farming or agriculture, it's not really just farming and agriculture, it's a wider rural context. Because if you have farmers in a community or in a local area, they're sending their kids to the local school. They're shopping in the local supermarket and buying supplies in the local co-op. So it's a much wider impact that agriculture has in a rural context, would you say?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It is still the backbone of a lot of rural areas, and you know, the importance of keeping farms going to, I suppose, generate jobs in other areas as well. Like you said, the local shop, keeping the local school open, keeping even, you know, the local GA club fielding a team. Like, so, you know, it's so important, I suppose, at a time where a lot of young people are, I suppose, leaving rural areas and you know, emigrating, even, you know, going to Australia and Dubai and all these other fancy places. So, you know, to try and encourage them to stay and I suppose contribute to the local community. Again, we have aging population in rural areas. You know, even for volunteering, you know, to a lot of the community groups that we have a network of Meals on Wheels, like, and we see the issues they're having in trying to get volunteers. So ensuring that there is that young people coming up, the next generation coming up to, you know, take over these volunteering positions as well, like that they can have time, even on local committees, and that, you know, it is so important. Yeah. And like as Finn said, you know, he has friends that don't come from a farming background, and, you know, you look out here today and it's full of young people. And a lot of young people, we were having the discussion beforehand, take ag science as a science subject in school. So there could be more encouragement there as well for people, you know, who may not have a background but are doing ag science, to go down that road and then be in a position to take up a job on a farm.
Hugh, the Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, said the other day that, like, while you can provide the education and the information on the admin side of things, on how to register a farm partnership, how to, you know, understand all the tax credits and so on, it's a sensitive subject still. So you can in Teagasc have a farm advisor that'll say, right, you need to get your mother and father to sign this, you need to do that or the other. But you know, how can we provide information to them, or maybe is it like the recommendations in the generational renewal report about holding clinics on how to approach the subject in the first place? Like, I mean, look, Finn, you know, he's young and he's in a unique situation where, you know, they have obviously talked about it, and his father knows the three of them are interested and so on, but that's not always the case. There could be 25 years go by where nobody mentions it, you know, between a father and a son, or a father and a man and his nephew, or anything.
It's a really timely question, because not next week, but the following week, we're having our transfer to family farm clinics around the country, and they're ranging from Gort, Roscommon, Monaghan, Care, Setu and Waterford and Dunmanway. So we're trying to cover a good area of the whole country. And at those clinics, farmers and families can come, they can meet the professionals, they can meet ourselves, they can kind of get that conversation started. The conversation, lads, really starts around the kitchen table. Finn will tell you that kind of, look, we have to have the conversation, what's going to happen in the future. And if we can be a conduit for that and kind of put the people into one room that says, at least we have the conversation started, and then the next step, to start the conversation going, to have the next step, to bring the next generation on and see what's available to them. Let it be, as Finn said, farm partnership. Let it be a share farming agreement with maybe another farmer. Let it be leasing a farm. And in the last couple of weeks, we've put examples of those together. We've invited people along to them. The transfer to family farm clinics will be running in the first week of October around the country. They're free of charge. Just register on our website, ring the local office, and we'd be welcome to meet you.
Finn, I'll go back to you and just talking about farming as a career. A lot of the time there can be an attitude, even amongst the you know, kids who come up on a farm, that, you know, maybe it's not the most attractive of careers. It's hardship, it's hard work, doesn't pay well, you never get a holiday. So, like, you know, certainly, and it's many moons ago now, when I was going out with single lady friends, and they were like, oh, I'd never marry a farmer, I'd never see him, you know. But tell me, I'd like to hear for once, instead of people saying, you know, farming is hard, it's hard to make a living, I would like to hear why you like it, why farming is actually not hard for those who love it and want to get into it, and what's so special about a farmer's life.
Yeah, sure, I suppose, like, as I said earlier on, like, I'm doing it all my life. Like, my father, as much as he wanted, like, he was mad at telling us, go get your education, get out of farming, don't stay in farming. And most fathers say it, like, I said, Jesus, don't be at this. Jesus, there's too much hardship in it, don't be at it. Like, and then we all, of course, as children, went against him, and all of us want to farm now, except the sister, who we probably did want to stay around, and sure, not a hope.
That's okay,
and she wants to be as far away from the farm as she can get. She wants city skylines and all that kind of stuff, and I just want grass and cows. But we had a great life growing up. Like, every evening after school, we went over with my father. We were there the whole way up along. And all of us, as we come up along, we finished school, and we always spent a year or two with my father, helping him out on the farm. And then we went off and done our own thing. We were in college, and we're still going home, helping with the father and stuff like that. So we always had an education in farming. And I suppose there's some people, I suppose, might not have their children as involved. And I suppose it's for safety reasons as well. I suppose you'd make sure that children are safe. But I suppose just, we used to go over and we asking hundreds of questions. I used to burn the ear off my father. I'd go over there, I'd be like 9 years of age, asking him, what's that? What's that? What's that do? What are you doing there? And all this. Yeah. And the two boys would be there, the younger brother and the older brother would be asking, what are you doing? What are you saying? Why are you asking them? So, like, it's answering those kind of questions and building, I suppose, instilling a passion within your children and stuff like that. I suppose, like, I've carried it my whole life. I went to college first. I'm working in it now. Now, there's long hours, there's a lot of work and stuff like that. Like, but it's rewarding. Like, when you love it, it is rewarding, even after all the long hours. So it's, I suppose, when you start so young, you know nothing else. But it's still, I suppose, when you know nothing else, and it's such a great job once you get to know it, and you see what the rewards are out of it, yeah. It's very easy to love it once you kind of get into it. So, like, it's some people think, like, it is a hard job, but I suppose when you're at it and you're seeing the cows out grazing, there's hard days, but then sun's out, cows are at grass, you're standing, you're going, job's done, in for a cup of tea, we can stick the legs up for the day, cows are happy,
Yes.
They're the good days. And I suppose you go through the rain, the muck, and the misery.
Yeah.
So you have the good days. Maybe they might have them 2 months of the year, but the other makes the other 10 months worth it when you have 2 months of good weather. So.
And like rural living is a different kind of living, and we had the Talking Bollocks lads in for the podcast the other day. You know, obviously Dublin city based and rarely ever on a farm and so on. And they were joking and ribbing us here about being culchies, you know. But Finn, like even through your social media, I've never met a more proud culchie man in my life. And when you're going around, and Louise would see this as well through all the work they do in rural areas, the community that's around rural Ireland and rural living, if you go out there in the ploughing, I mean, I could walk from one end of the concourse to the other and probably talk to 100 people along the way that I've never met before in my life, and you'd swear they were my next door neighbour for the last 20 years. That's the type of camaraderie and crack, and that's I feel do you feel that's why you're so popular on social media? Because you've lads who are out there, you know, on machines. You've the lads below here on the tractor simulators, and they're watching you because you speak their language.
Yeah, sure. Like I suppose it's the country humour, it's the country life really. Like I talk about going out for a few pints. Like myself and my friends, we have the Sunday club, and I think everyone should have a Sunday club, and going out, have a few pints of a Sunday, have a chat. Now, some lads get carried away. They start.
Does it go into a Monday club?
Most of the time it does. But there's we're meant to start after the cows Sunday evening. Some lads don't milk the cows Sunday evening. And they're in the pub at 2:30. And I arrive in at 8 o'clock. And they're about 9 or 10 pints ahead of me. So
yeah. You might be as well off in.
It's not even a Sunday club at that stage now. At that stage you're trying to just get the boys home. But having that kind of, it is a community and it's a community that's very everyone knows everyone. Like we go around, and I've said it to everyone, like if you're a group of friends and you're all farming, like what we do in the summertime is when we're doing silage, say whoever cuts their silage first, everyone else arrives over, we help cover the pit. Brings a big group of lads together, bring all of our friends come in, and you're chatting away to everyone that's there. You might not have seen each other for a few weeks because you're all at silage, you're also breeding, everyone else is going on, bringing everyone together to just have a chat, catch up there for a few hours and go away again. 2 weeks later, say, I'm doing my silage, and they have to return the favour. So then you have another 15 lads on to cover your pit, and it helps. I suppose it takes the workload off silage because obviously covering the pit is one of the worst jobs of the summer. And then at the same time, then you can have a bit of crack afterwards. The job is done quick. Yeah. Stand around, have a bit of a laugh. You might have a few bottles. We don't talk about that. Just a bit of crack.
2 bottles of pop. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's kind of a community and being able to kind of engage as much as you can, because it's an isolating job. But if you make it a bit of crack, a bit of fun, it's a very easy job to do.
Louise, Finn touches on something really important there in terms of rural life, and that's that social connection. Because rural life can be isolating. And Finn seems to have a great balance there. Like, they work hard and everything, but there's a great community spirit. They get together, whether it's in the pub or they might get together, over the silage pick, sitting up on a wall, chatting and things like that. For mental health, for our social responsibility, how important is it that the government nurtures these type of, areas, like rural areas, like the local pub, support and investment into those areas so that the social connection can continue?
Yeah, again, it's very important that there is those places to meet up, the pub. Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't have to be the pub either. It could be anywhere.
There's plenty of farmers that go card playing on a Friday night.
But to have those outlets is so important. And engage in those farmers in that. We ran a farm safety program before. We're currently with Agri Kids doing an outreach with community outreach with schools and communities, like farm communities. But I suppose having that outreach piece is so important, and that peer-to-peer piece as well. And I suppose with the Agri Kids, it's children going home telling parents, because it's about physical safety on the farm, but it's also about mental health and well-being as well of the farmer and of the whole farm family.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And especially for young people, where it is getting more difficult to, I suppose, have those social outings. I suppose you know, you're lucky you have a lot of your friends still around, but like there's a lot of communities and a lot of young people who are taking on farming, are taking over the family farm, and a lot of their friends have emigrated, or they're in Dublin or in the cities, so they don't see them.
Yeah.
And just making sure that, you know, it's that check-in piece as well, and I suppose ensuring that, you know, even people outside of the farming community do engage with the local farmer as well, and you know, if they're new to the area or, you know, they live there,
Exactly.
they know they see the farmer or the farm family every day.
We're just running out of a bit of time here, but I suppose I want to finish up on Finn, because you are a young farmer, you're the next generation of farmers. And I want to say to you that I have Aladdin in a genie lamp. And Aladdin is going to appear in front of you there now, Finn, and grant you anything you want. Let's keep it farming. Let's keep it on the farming vein. But
Big Finn.
you're a young farmer, Finn Walsh. I'm at your service, and I can grant you a wish of something you want to change, something you want to introduce, something, and it can be as mad in the head as you think it is. Like, it doesn't have to be something like logistical. It can be just, oh my God, if farming could do this, this is what I would love. Is there anything that you'd love to get?
So I suppose if to start communicating more. Like, I suppose my father is in the older generation. I've said it 100 times, I've said it 1,000,000 times. He's stubborn. And there's a lot of lads out there that they don't want to talk about it, you know, the next generation and giving it over and stuff like that. Like, and I was mentioning it earlier on. I knew a fella, and his father was kind of, I'd say he wanted to retire 10 years before, but he had to wait until the child was 18. So he was like, I'll wait when he's 18. We're going to sit down, have a conversation, and we're going to. 18 years of age, he sat down with him and he said, "Do you want the farm? Do you want to take it over?" He said, "I do." So they done a 10-year plan. So it was 10 years of the son was going to take over the farm. And the first year, he got 10% of the farm, and he got 10% of the responsibilities. And every year it went up by 10% for 10 years. By 6 years in, the son had 60% of the farm, 60% of responsibility, and the father was on the retirement train. Yeah. So the father was backing off, son's taking over. And in doing that, then you're instilling, say, the knowledge, obviously, of the industry, but you also have 10 years of change within the industry that your child is there to kind of grow and understand and kind of change with it, so that you're not going, right, I'm retiring this year. Here's the farm, here's the keys, sink or swim. So you have 10 years of knowledge, 10 years of change that you're slowly getting integrated into it. After 8 years, he's basically running the farm. He's all the responsibility, but the father's still there to give him a bit of help.
A little bit of backup, a little comfort blanket for
another. If he needs a bit of advice, and he's always going to have the advice, even when he has the farm fully. But like, it's just to kind of give him a bit of support. But he's fully has the reins, but he still has a bit of support there, like, so that people aren't just throwing this massive responsibility on lads that might not be fully ready for it, and ladies obviously that are not fully ready for it.
Yeah.
So like, it's about kind of, I suppose, communicate early, get the passion instilled early, and kind of to make sure that we carry on
100%.
Into the next generation.
Wouldn't that be absolutely amazing if it just became the norm that every young fella or young girl who just wanted to take over the farm, they all started their 10-year plan. That was brilliant. 10%, 20%, and on you go. No cliff edge, nothing frightening for the younger generation, you know, and the older generation know they have a plan to get out.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be amazing if that was the norm? It'd be fantastic. Well, we have only time for that, I'm afraid, today. I could stay here chatting to the three of you all day, but we must wrap up this panel discussion for now, because we've loads more to show you before the end of Ploughing today, so we're going to head back out to the site now to our Agriland team.
So we're here at the revenue stand at the National Ploughing Championships, and I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Foley. And Alan is the head of the dog unit with Revenue. Alan, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Revenue's dog unit?
Yeah, so Revenue Dog Unit, we have 25 dogs in operation. They're based all around ports, airports and mail centres around the country. Today we actually have 2 dogs with us here on site. They've been here all week. We have one of our detector dogs, Billy. He's an English Springer Spaniel. He's trained to detect tobacco and cash. And then we also have then a dog that we operate on behalf of the Department of Agriculture called Casey. He's a Fox Red Labrador, and he's trained to detect meat and dairy products coming in from outside the EU.
And how important are these dogs in Revenue's work?
They're vital to us because what they can do, like in very quick succession, they're able to rule out the majority of passengers there to where they can travel through the country in and out of the airport as quick as possible. These guys are trained to search basically for needles and haystacks, so they will just come straight through relatively quickly. If there's something present, they'll stop and indicate. Everything else they learn to ignore, and they let people travel through.
And do they have much success, Alan?
Very successful, yeah. We've had number of success over the years with all of our dogs. Like on it, Casey in particular, from an agriculture point of view, like on it, he's successful every day of the week. There's always people bringing food in and out of the EU, and Casey is there to help. He'd be working on the baggage belts out the back of the airport, and he's in operation every day.
And tell us about their working life, Alan. How long do these dogs take to train, and how long are they in service for?
So we normally like to get the dogs in from around 1.5 years of age to 2.5. They'll work up until around 8 years of age. They can go on a little longer, but we normally just get them more medically assessed by a vet. We want to make sure that they don't have any type of ailments like hip injuries. So around 8 years of age, we'd look to try replace the dog. And then the dog, like, we do have a homing program in place, but we've never got past where the handler wants to keep the dog. The handler always wants to keep and remain the handler for the rest of the dog's life. So we're very lucky in that respect with our handlers that we employ. They're very committed to their role, very dedicated, and they stay with the dog then throughout the rest of the dog's life.
Yeah.
So we're here at SPD.
You see that bond, and that bond is very important, Alan, when these dogs are working on the field or out in airports or wherever we need them to be.
Yeah. They build it up over a time, like kind of as the training which they go through. The dog would receive, say, 3 months training beforehand, and then the handler comes in then for 2 months. They'll go through like it's done over an 8-week period. They'll start building up. They learn to read the dog's behaviour, and as they're doing that, they start building like a sort of inseparable bond. The handler's able to read all different changing behaviours of the dog. The dog actually understands exactly what the handler wants of them, and they're very effective teams. Once they have that bond, they're irreplaceable basically then to us.
Well, it's man's best friend, but they're invaluable to the Revenue Service. And Alan, thank you so much for telling us about the dog unit and how they're helping to keep us safe and to detect meat and different products that shouldn't be coming into the country. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're here at the ICSA tent, and we have here President Dennis Drennan. So Dennis, talk to us about the impacts we would have if we lost the nitrates derogation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I think there's been a lot of economists that have done analysis as regards the financial implications of it, but I actually think they underestimate the implication of it, in the sense that, a lot of people don't really understand that derogation farmers are not all farmers with 200-300 cows. So if you have 300 cows and derogation goes, you may have to cut to 200, but you're still a viable unit. And you will survive. But the average number of dairy herds in Ireland is 92 cows. So you're looking at then there's far more people below 92 than there is above 92. So if you take people milking 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 cows, if the derogation was to go on those, you would end up that those units just wouldn't be viable. So that ends up that the farmer has to leave the land, he or she has to leave the land and find an alternative source of income, because it's just not going to be sustainable for somebody who's milking 60 cows. It's maybe cut to 40 or 45. It's just not going to be a viable unit. So there'll be a lot of people at that scale that will be exiting the sector. You also have the issue then on the knock-on on the processors. Obviously, if the milk pool contracts due to the loss of derogation, there's going to be a lot of stainless steel in the country that has been built to facilitate the expansion in the dairy sector for the last 10 years, after being hamstrung for 30 years, that a lot of that will be left idle. And we all know that if you want processing capacity to work efficiently, it needs milk, and if it doesn't have the required amount of milk, it's not going to be as efficient. But then you have the dairy farmer, when you go down somewhere like Charleville in Cork, or you go to somewhere like Ballyragget in Kilkenny, there isn't a Microsoft, an Intel, a Google there to provide money for the rural economy. So dairy farming is the real heartbeat of the rural economy, and if those dairy farmers go missing, their heartbeats gets very slow and the pulse dies, and that's the problem with rural Ireland. So there's a huge implication, not just inside the farm gate but outside the farm gate, for the amount of employment that they create outside the farm gate, and also with the knock-on effect of the money circulating in the rural economy. They say that every euro that comes into a farmer's gate ends up with €3 in the local economy, so that makes a huge difference. So it's going to have detrimental effects for much further knock-on than just the farmer.
Brilliant. And can you see the derogation going in the next couple of years, or would you be optimistic that it will stay around?
You'd have to be optimistic. Like, I mean, when you see there's a whole of industry approach to protecting water quality, air quality. I mean, we've all the co-ops on board, meat industry Ireland, dairy industry Ireland, all the farm organisations, everybody working together, and there's huge buy-in from farmers. Like, when you look at the sustainability measures, the Waters for Life projects, all those are heavily subscribed, and all farmers are really putting their shoulder to the wheel. The whole industry is putting its shoulder to the wheel, and I think we were given a commitment that if water quality turned the corner, and we all said that there would be a lag in water quality improvement, and we've seen this improvement starting to develop now. We all thought it would just be a stabilisation and then start to improve, but thankfully it has turned the corner and going in the right direction due to the hard work being put in by everybody in the sector to improve water quality. So it would be an awful shame if derogation was to be lost just as we're getting water quality right. So hopefully we have a tough battle ahead between now and the end of the year to secure derogation, because this derogation runs out on the 31st of December. But I think with everybody, and if we get political will as well, we should be able to secure derogation with the water quality results that we're getting at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dennis. Back to you with the tent.
So I'm here with Michael McIntyre, who's the Technical Director of NEF and Renewable Gas. So Michael, can you tell me, you've broke ground here in Ballinrobe with the biomethane plant. What has the community engagement been like with the people in Ballinrobe, and what will that mean for the biomethane plant there?
Well, first, we're very thankful to the people in the Ballinrobe area. We engaged extensively on a one-to-one community engagement, where we went door to door. We met with the people. We got their opinions and their fears and their, I suppose, and to allay their fears, we would take all the information that would have been provided, good, bad, or indifferent, for us to incorporate in our environmental assessments, in our planning application, and in our design, so that we took their fears on board and we incorporated them in our design, so that we basically are harmony with the local community. What we were very thankful for is the level of engagement and how much it helped us to secure our planning permission quickly. We achieved our planning permission on that site in less than 18 months, which was quite unusual for a large-scale development, and we're very thankful to the people who have supported us in the area. Basically, from a community point of view, we have, I suppose, a scale of jobs or levels of jobs from very, very technical to the whole way down the spectrum. For example, a number of our engineers formerly worked in the pharmaceutical sector. Young engineers, farming background, worked in the pharmaceutical sector, would like the idea of coming back to agriculture, using the learnings that they have from the pharmaceutical industry to bring with us, which is exactly the same technologies that we are using to build our biomethane plant. These guys are, previously the pharmaceutical industry is noted for paying very well, so we have to match their pay scales to entice them to come with us. So that's the case where we're working at that level. However, by bringing people back to their own areas and back to the rural economy, we're helping clubs and community organisations to get new blood into their area, because one of the biggest things is the fear of brain drain. Most people that go for the highly technical jobs are commuting to cities or living in the cities, and they're lost to their local community. We're helping to bring people back to the community. But what's more important is, from a silage, we produce crops. Our crops and slurries and waste we take to make our gas. They're produced locally. Agricultural contractors, for example, have a highly seasonal workforce requirement, so they have a mad demand for a large number of people in May, June, July, and very little and falls off at the end of the year. Whereas in our case, we need the contractors to produce the crops early in the year, to fertilise the crops, to manage the crops, to harvest the crops, to produce silage and hold it in the silage pit, and to transport that silage to our plants all year round. So it basically flattens out that employment curve. But far more importantly is, in the current climate, the tillage sector is in crisis on its knees. We are part of the solution to the tillage sector, because we can provide 10 to 15 year contracts that, for example, and index linked. So most tillage farmers today still don't know what they're going to get for their crop that's already taken off the field, whereas when they plant the crop on contract for Nephin, we would they would know what it's going to cost to harvest that in the, and they know what margin they're going to make in that before the crop gets planted. So that's where we feel we're an intrinsic part of the community.
It seems to me like you really have engaged with the community really well, and it seems to me like it's a really good cycle. So can you just quickly tell me like how the cycle is come together, just in one quick sentence?
I suppose. I will describe it as engagement, but basically patience and listening to the community. We don't hold public meetings. We work one-on-one with the community, because there's no such thing as a stupid question that people feel intimidated at large public gatherings. They can ask us one-on-one, and there's no answer, there's no question that it's, every question is important to the individual. However, if you're in a room where there's 100 or 200 people and you have to stand up and answer, you're very, very unsure of what reaction you'll get from that. Whereas if I'm sitting across the table from you and engage with you, you can ask me anything, and it's in your own, it's on your terms, not on the terms of a public meeting.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to chat to me, and best of luck with everything in Ballinrobe and with the company.
Now, so we're joined by Independent Ireland TD Michael Fitzmaurice. Michael, we're back at the Ploughing. How are you finding it so far?
Sure, look, it's as ever, it's interesting. It's interesting to see new ideas. It's interesting to talk to farmers. And you hear what's going on the ground, and how the job is going right around the country. So, look, it's great to be here for a few hours today.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a big talking point for farmers at the moment, the Mercosur deal and the concerns around that, what that's going to look like. Do you feel it's maybe an inevitability that that's the trajectory that we're seeing from Europe, or do you think that we have a chance in Ireland to get our voice heard about our concerns?
Well, it's all down to votes in Europe, and it's all down to pressure from Ireland. I do feel that France, it's looking like if they get a few quid more, they'll throw in the towel. Maloney doesn't seem to be as tough as what we always believed she was in Italy. And I think that our Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, and the Tánaiste to Simon Harris, because bear in mind that he's foreign affairs, but he's also trade as well. I think they need to use every bit of basically working with other countries to try and block this as much as possible. But at the end of the day, and I think that farmers has to realise this, and the people of Ireland has to realise this, with the way this has been done, Europe has become undemocratic because unelected people, civil servants in Europe, has split the whole thing, made it possible that they have made a county council out of the Dáil in Ireland, made a county council out of every parliament right around Europe, because now there isn't an obligation to vote on it. And the talk about communism in China and Russia, I'll tell you one thing, van der Leyen, in my opinion, is heading that way as well.
Michael, I suppose closer to home, the nitrates derogation, we're seeing not very positive figures coming from the EPA in terms of nitrates. Would you be concerned about retaining the derogation beyond this year?
I do think that I would be confident we will get it. I would be that we'll get a time, basically, in my opinion. What's going to be done is a bit of a not in a wink job, in my opinion, that we'll get 2 years to keep us going. The job at hand that the Minister and the Department has to do in the line of, the Habitats Directive, my God, that is some job to try and tackle. To take 4 or 5 years, there isn't enough of scientists in Ireland. It is worrying for the southeast, let no one say it's not. There has been improvements in certain areas. I would be fearful, and I would caution one thing to farmers. You can get the prize, but what's the cost? And what's going to be basically the terms and conditions? Because that's what it's all going to boil down to. You can be given the middle, but at the end of the day, if you cannot reach that middle, well, Jesus, it's no good to you. So you have to watch that. There'll be great hoo-ha if we get it for the couple of years. I think we will. But I would watch the terms and conditions that be on it, because it could be unattainable for a lot of farmers. And while the bigger farmer, it won't affect them, the 500 or 600 or 400 cows, the farmer under 100 cows is really going to get hammered. I've listened to a few cases where people with 60 cows or 70 cows is going to be brought down to 40. And that's where you lose the viability of family farms, and that's where we have to make sure we protect it.
Deputy Michael Fitzmaurice, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
So, an industry in crisis is the phrase that best describes the state of Irish tillage at the moment. 3 consecutive harvests, poor grain prices, and ever-increasing input costs have combined to totally floor sustainability levels within the sector. So where now for Irish tillage? I'm Agriland's Richard Halloran, and to help me discuss this point in some detail over the next 20 minutes, I'm joined by John Murphy, the Vice Chair of the IFA National Grain Committee, and Bobby Miller, the Joint Secretary of the Irish Grain Growers Group. Guys, thank you very much for agreeing to join me today.
No problem.
John, starting with yourself, we had the emergency tillage meeting in Naas last Friday. 1,000 farmers attended, an estimated 1,000 farmers attended. The Minister was in attendance. Do you think he got the message in terms of just how low the sense of tillage is at the moment in Ireland?
Yeah, Richard, I think, to be fair, the tillage sector turned out last Friday night. And like, I don't know whether it was out of anger or fear or what it is, but there was a lot of people in that room and they don't see a future in what they're doing, which is a very scary place to be if you're rearing a family or whatever it is, because the majority of the people was there, you see them yourself, for family people, family farms. They're finding it hard to see where they can go. And of course, then you're back to the last place, you're looking for support from the government. And as I said myself at the meeting, it's a sticking plaster, is the 65 million. But if we don't get it, I don't believe we'll see next year, if you had that same meeting, there'd probably be 500 farmers at it, which is where we feel the tillage sector is being put under so much pressure from derogation, land costs, fertiliser costs, seed costs, chemicals. Machinery has just went out of hand. But when you see that many people turning up, especially for Friday night, we were a bit afraid would the people turn out. They did turn out. And I think the message has gone to the Minister. Whether he can do something about it or not is going to be our biggest problem. But like any chance we get, we would urge every politician to row in behind it. Because when the tillage sector is gone, it's gone. I haven't seen a crowd like that since 20 years ago when we lost our beet industry. There was crowds like that, and that's a scary place to be.
Okay. Just to focus on one point concerning the 65 million euro. Is that a one-off payment, or is that a payment that can be made or should be made on an annual basis throughout the period of the current DAL?
Well, to put the confidence back in, tillage, I think that needs to run for a 5-year period. But if we can get it to keep us going, to get into next year, like planting will be starting in the next month of winter crops. But there's a lot of people saying to me that they're going to hold off. They don't feel that they can do this. They're looking at other enterprises. They're looking at, some people looking at renewables. And it's just the tillage sector is going to go further and further down. And what point in time is it when you say we don't have one? When there's 10 or 12 big growers left in the country. Like, that's not a tillage sector. A tillage sector is family farms, mixed farming. It's always a bigger benefit to have it that way than 10 or 12 people running the whole show.
Okay. Bobby, we have the budget coming up October the 7th. It's a fortnight away. You've met the Minister, you've made your submission. Are you hopeful that there is a package coming out on the day in question?
We'd want to be more than hopeful, Richard. It's a necessity that the government react. And I was delighted to see Simon Harris here with you during the week, and he committed to something for the tillage sector. It's good that they're talking about the tillage sector that has been discussed around the cabinet table. So we are hopeful that something will happen. What comes is important as well, and how, if something comes, we can't preempt something, but if something comes, is how we go about securing the future of the tillage sector going forward. Our budget submission was about a 5-year plan for a tillage expansion and sustainability scheme. It was about marketing native Irish grain. It was about, we're constantly hearing about sustainability, biodiversity, and all this subject going forward, carbon footprint. We have that product, and we need the government to value that product. The government now first, and then industry as well. We are, from our point of view, investing in the tillage sector is cost neutral for the likes of Pascal Donoghue, because our carbon footprint is 300 kilos per hectare versus other sectors. So there's good reason to invest in the tillage sector. That's the point we want to make. Investing in the tillage sector is money very well spent by this government. And unfortunately, the investment in the tillage sector has been very poor up to recently. We're coming from a very low base of investment. We see TV, and there's potentially been 80 million being spent on one particular problem in the livestock sector. We have very, very poor support, financial support, up to recently for the tillage sector. And the government must start putting their money where their mouth is. They have committed to it in their manifestos, so now's the time for action.
Okay. How do we bridge the gap between production of native grains and getting greater utilisation of those same oilseeds and grains within, as an example, the livestock sector? How do we get the feed millers on board to commit to native grains as opposed to imports?
I think you have to go beyond the feed mills first. You need the users of what we produce to benefit as well. We need the dairy farmer, the beef farmer, the sheep farmer to benefit from you using native Irish grain. That's your starting point. Get people looking for what you have, and get those that's using native Irish to be rewarded by the likes of the supermarkets, by the likes of the meat industry, by the dairy industry. They have to get involved in this, and then the feed mills will have to follow. Currently, it's as you know, it's a world market we deal in, a world commodities market. And as John touched on there, we're competing with the technology we use is making this uncompetitive. You like the genetically modified feedstuffs coming in here. 70% of what's imported into Ireland comes from outside the EU. And there's a very unbalanced playing field there that government policy must act on. We're looking for financial support, but we need strong policy from this minister and the government if it has any interest in saving the tillage sector in this country.
Okay. John, just coming back to you and reflecting back on the meeting at NACE, I mean, one of the points that consistently came through from the floor was the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, the upcoming review. Many tillage farmers on the night saying, our CAP payments have been eroded over the past 2 reviews of the Common Agricultural Policy. They want that stopped or possibly reversed. I mean, is there potential for that to happen? The single payment, that basic support that's available, can that be either maintained or increased?
Well, I suppose, Richard, the budget of the single farm payment is under the pressure, and that we all know will lead to a downward in the overall payment per farmer. But like the tillage sector, as you said, it got caught with convergence, and then the icing on the cake that really stunned us was the CRIS. Mm-hmm. That CRIS payment, because of the dynamic of tillage farmers, you're renting different farms, whatever it may be. That CRIS payment could be 3 to 4 times that lost. How do they reverse it? If the EU is not wanting a safe food policy, which I don't believe the CAP is anymore, it's more of an environmentally safe policy. Until they start realising that without a safe food policy, well, they'll end up importing a lot more from other countries because we won't have it. And that's where I would fear, can we get more money from it? It depends on how it's going to be distributed. Everybody is going to be looking for it, as we well know. Yeah. But it seems to be more environmental that they want it to go, which we don't mind which way it comes, but I'd rather be paid for having a safer food and a safer grains and pulses, oilseed rapes within our country, within Europe, rather than importing that. And we saw our vental or the arable fallow seems to be quite popular now all of a sudden That's nearly a better payment than sowing a crop of corn, which that's a scary place to be for a tillage farmer. If they're wanting to import it cheaper, we don't know what's going on it, and yet they leave our land idle.
Okay.
It's a bit of a contradictory, like.
Yeah. So, Bobby, back to you. From a CAP perspective, there seems to be maybe an acceptance is the wrong word, but acceptance that the CAP budget is going to be maintained possibly at best where it is. Is there scope, do you believe, for the Irish government to come in and contribute more national funding towards the tillage sector without having to go to Brussels for permission to do that, to make those deals in the first place?
Yeah, food security is obviously vital. We're lucky enough for in the country we live in that we produce a lot of food. But like John mentioned, our sustainability, our environmental footprint and all like that, if that's where they want to go in the budget, the CAP budget, tillage farmers should be first in line to receive that funding because of what we have as a sector. Tillage is biodiversity in itself in this country, which is mostly grass-based. But biodiversity is going to be lost. We see figures out this week that they increased the population of the corncrake by 20% from a very low base. But if you lose tillage in this country, you're losing biodiversity. You're losing the likes of the yellowhammer, for example, that bird. So if they want to go biodiversity route, we'll take every euro they can give us in that regard, because we tick the boxes they are talking about. So, like the corn budget, the CAP budget, 70% of tillage farmers are financially worse off currently because each year that passes, we're getting less and less money. This isn't the current cap, let alone talking about the next cap.
Yep.
So we've been hit hard in the previous caps, and if that happens again, like John says, the tillage area is just going to disappear. Yeah. So the government should step in. They should see the benefit of having a tillage sector in this country for themselves, if nothing else.
I think I'm pretty certain in saying that 40% of the crops grown, the combinable crops grown in Ireland, are grown on rented or land taken on Conacre. And maybe John.
Oh, it would be easily that. I'd say it could be even more.
So how do we get a scenario in place that allows tillage farmers, and we're looking, given the current Teagasc figures, at another year coming in of very challenging incomes, towards 2026. There's no, there's no prospect of grain prices increasing, yet we do know fertilizer prices are going to rise in 2026. Other input costs are going to rise in 2026. So the other element within all of this is, as you've just mentioned, is Conacre prices. Is there any way that there could be land ring-fenced for tillage farmers? Or how do you balance the needs of, say, a tillage farmer looking ground to grow crops and a dairy farmer looking ground to milk cows, to have the required land area to meet his slurry spreading needs, his effluent spreading needs? How do you balance that from an IFA perspective?
Well, I actually think that, and it all ties back to the nitrates directive, the nitrates problem as well. I don't believe we have a nitrates problem in Ireland if we actually all sat down and really thought about it properly. The amount of slurry that has to be moved off a livestock farm to a tillage farm is probably, the figures are wrong in the sense it's too much of the actual slurry from that farm. Like if I split my dairy farm and tillage farm in half and said I'm going to export my slurry, well, my slurry is halved in value coming off my dairy farm to the tillage part of it. But it's all part of that joint up thinking. If there's a demand for Irish grain, which means a good inclusion rate in every bit of feed stuff that goes out, as Bobby alluded to get people to use more Irish grain is about education. There seems to be an awful lot of nutritionists wanting to educate people on the cheaper way of doing it. But let's think about doing it the most sustainable way of doing it. I believe is going to be the future. Like, as Bobby alluded to, our carbon footprint is the lowest carbon footprint on grain that can be in this country anyway, at least.
Yep.
So if there's a joint up thinking, the slurry is moved to the right places. Well, the dairy sector don't need the land as much as what's being pushed on them. And a lot of dairymen I'm talking to are saying to me, I don't want to rent this land, but I'm getting caught on nitrates.
Yeah.
So if there's a bit of movement around on the slurry, if a bit of joint up thinking, logically way of doing it, and have it travelling the least amount of miles that it has to, I think this thing could actually work out beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
But until that joint up thinking comes along, and like I can say that it's within IFA's ranks that there would be joint up thinking, but there's also in the ranks where there wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And we all need to sit down and talk about this out together, along with the department. And Teagasc have a major part to play in this, with the advice and the education that farmers need as the livestock farmers to actually get the benefit from using Irish grain. Because, well, I know from using it on my own farm, once you use it, you won't go back the other way.
Gotcha. Turning then to the logistics very quickly, Bobby, of 2025-26, the growing season. I think it's pretty clear now that oilseed rape acreages are up 50%, but there seems to be a reluctance on the part of growers to commit to purchasing winter wheat, winter barley seed. Is that a case, do you think, of guys just now simply waiting to see what comes out of the budget and then making a decision as to whether or not they're going to go ahead with the winter planting season?
Well, I think the first thing is tillage farmers are weighing up all their options going forward. It's not just about cropping. They're going to have a serious look at what way they're going to use their land going forward. Do they genuinely have to look at putting their land into grassland? Do genuinely, that's where they're at the minute. They're doing the calculations with their accountants, they're scratching their head. They need confidence from the sector going forward. Obviously, what comes out in the budget will be one key element of it, but it's not just what's in the budget. It's we need the drinks industry to respond in a positive manner, and we need feed mills to respond and merchants to respond in a positive manner. So it's a lot of key factors coming into play. And at last Friday night's meeting, there's more than tillage farmers in that room. There's merchants, machinery dealerships, there's agronomists. The worry on all those faces was very obvious. And we have a stand here at Plowing, and the number of farmers, tillage farmers coming in with blank faces, really concerned about their futures, was disheartening. Really was disheartening, Richard, to see it happening. You know, but I think if the government come good with their promise, but they must push policy as well to save this sector. And it is a case of saving the sector. We can see, and John will tell you this as well, we can see the sector acreage plunging in the next couple of years. We're already, we're just out of the land market currently. We can't compete in the land market currently. So do you go ahead and plant crops to lose money? You wouldn't advise anyone else to go into a job every day not to get paid. And I'll finish on that.
Okay. If the minister does commit, or we get from the budget a commitment to a fund, a support fund for tillage, can I assume that money is required in tillage bank accounts ASAP, John?
Well, it is in mine anyway, Richard. And I'm safely say anyone that would be offered money at this stage would take it. Of course, like, look, we've had an early harvest. I suppose grain price is not fixed yet. Merchants and co-ops have paid out some money on account, but yes, there's a starvation there for cash. Definitely. Like anybody that's in a position to try even do up bits of machinery or replace some machinery, like that's one thing about the tillage sector. You can't just keep going with what you have. You will have to maintain. You will have to replace machinery, tyres on tractors, all that, and all that's after doubling in the last number of years. But there's a starvation out there for cash at the minute, definitely.
Guys, sorry, Bobby, do you want to come in just one last point?
Yeah, just on the budget. Like last year's 32 million, it didn't come in until January. Like budget 20 coming into 2 weeks' time, the funding won't be available till 2026.
Okay.
We'd want that as early as we can in the season. That's all I can say. January, February, as quick as it can get out to us, if there's funding for us, Richard.
Guys, we've had 20 minutes to talk about an issue that we could sit and chat for 4 hours about the issues that are there within Tillage at the moment. Could I thank you for both coming and spending some time with me today? Thank you so much. Take care. Okay.
Taoiseach, can I just ask you, Aisling from Agriland, just in relation to the latest EPA figures, you're talking about farmers, and a huge cause for concern is the retention of the nitrates derogation. Are you concerned by what you're seeing in those EPA figures published this week?
Well, first of all, the nitrates directive and the retention of the derogation is number one on my priority in terms of agriculture and farming. And in my first meeting with President von der Leyen, I highlighted the importance of the nitrates for the derogation we have for Ireland and for Irish agriculture, and also for society. No, we are taking very strong efforts to improve water quality. Concerns, yes, in terms of the most recent, but that's on the basis of a very strong performance last year. And there can be variability in terms of weather patterns and so on, which can impact on the nitrate penetration in waterways and so on like that. So, but it really speaks to the need to double down on the efforts that we're taking with the farming community to improve water quality, methods, modernise farm activity and operations to reduce nitrate pollution in water.
So we're here at FBD with Head of Sales for Munster, Maureen O'Mara. So Maureen, I suppose in terms of sheds, lads are putting up new sheds, but there's a big problem with people undervaluing sheds for their policies, and they might be trying to save a few bucks, but realistically it costs them in the long run. So could you talk us through the importance of putting full value on?
Absolutely. So I suppose what we've seen over the last few years is the huge increase in the cost of steel, all of the materials. And it's very important that if somebody is expanding, especially in the dairy sector, that they're updating their insurance every year that they make a change. So the best thing they can do is come into their local office and have a chat with their representative, and then we can get somebody out to look at their sheds and make sure that they're adequately insured.
Brilliant. And I suppose maybe some of the challenges around insuring them, kind of things like, as you say, the price of steel and all that. Would there be more challenges that kind of bring a farmer to underappreciate the shed, or is it mostly the prices?
I think, to be honest with you, it's maybe the lack of recognition. For someone that has put on a shed in the last few years, they're aware of the increase in value, but for people that haven't made any changes in the last few years, they're unaware of the current rebuilding costs, and that's why it's very important to review your insurance every year and make sure you're adequately covered in the event of a claim.
Fantastic. And I suppose then moving on, this week we're doing a lot of touching on generational renewal. It's a big topic. Young farmers coming in, and I suppose you cover personal accidents. Maybe a young farmer goes out, he's playing sport, he gets hurt, mightn't be able to milk, broken leg, broken arm. What more can you tell us about that?
Okay, so what we suggest, again, for a farmer, especially I suppose, again, looking at the dairy industry, if you cannot milk your cows, you need to get somebody else who can. So we provide personal accident insurance for farmers. We sell it by unit, and I suppose the important piece is that they can get the sports extension as well. So if they play sports, we can add that extension onto the policy. So they're covered 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Maureen.
No problem at all.
Back to you in the tent.
Good afternoon, it's Justin here, machinery specialist for Agriland.ie, and we're talking to Angelina Lars from Agri Technica, who's the area sales manager for United Kingdom, Ireland and Korea, I believe.
It's true. Ireland, UK, South Korea, Japan and India.
That's quite a portfolio. Anyway, Angelina, now the actual show is arranged by something we just call DLG. Could you just explain exactly who and what and why DLG is?
DLG, German Agriculture Society, was founded in 19th century, 85, by German engineer and pioneer of this time, Max Eid. and it's called German Agricultural Society, but nowadays it's an internationally recognized organization, completely independent, organizing show and distributing progress in agriculture and food sector.
All right. Okay. So how long, now the Agri Technica is a large show, how long has it been holding Agri Technica?
Agri Technica started from 1985, first in Frankfurt, but then moved to Hanover because it wasn't enough place for displaying the bigger agricultural machines.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the big concerns you must have is machinery is getting bigger nowadays. And do you still find that a struggle? Do you still looking for bigger and more and more space to put the machines?
Agri Technica is called the biggest trade fair for agricultural machinery and plant production, and occupying all 23 halls of Hanover exhibition grounds with no square meters unoccupied on exhibition space of 389 square meters. Yeah.
That's quite a size. So what do you think the secret of Agri Technica's success is? Because everybody knows it and a lot of people would like to get to it. Why do you think you are so successful? Why do you think people want to come and see you?
Internationality and innovation. Agri Technica is called the place where innovation matters. And this is what attracts people, because if you come to Agri Technica, you're supposed to see the newest technology first as premiere.
Yeah.
So the Irish agriculture professionals are also important part of Agri Technica, coming in big numbers, and we warmly invite them to come and explore how modern innovative technology can support their farming or contracting businesses in their work.
We in Ireland like to think we punch above our weight in innovation and new machinery. Do you feel over and out in Germany that perhaps Ireland, we are only a small country, but we're doing a lot of development? Is that a sentiment that is shared in German circles? We do have Michaela and one or two other companies, and they are sort of pushing it. It's just perhaps it's our vanity.
I think Irish visitors are very curious to innovations and are ready to implement them in their businesses. So this is why they're also coming to Agri Technica.
Yeah, and you find that most people visiting Agri Technica are very receptive to the innovation. Is this?
Yeah,
well, yeah.
For sure, very receptive. Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you think innovation is taking us now? We hear a lot about electronics and what have you. Is that still going to be the main push, the main driver?
As I said, innovation is the cornerstone of Agri Technica, and the leading manufacturers they reorient their production cycles to demonstrate their newest achievements, the newest technology at Agri Technica first.
So you thoroughly recommend a visit to our Irish viewers here?
For sure. Yeah, that's reason number one.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Angelina. That's very kind of you, and I look forward to seeing you over there.
So you're joining us here at the SIFA Forestry Hub at the National Ploughing Championships, and I'm delighted to be joined by the chair of SIFA, Padraig Egan. Padraig, can you tell us a little bit about SIFA, the organisation, and also the Forestry Hub that you have here in Screggan?
Yes, Aisling. SIFA is formed now about 4 years, and it's a coming together of all the private forestry companies out in Ireland and the major nursery, Nunsa Hardy in Wicklow, and we represent, I suppose, over 90% of private forest owners in Ireland. The Forestry Hub then, I suppose, the way forestry is going at the moment and a lot of problems and issues with environmental conditions and everything, we came together with the Department of Agriculture and they kindly funded this for us, or funded most of it. And this is bringing together of a lot of people in the industry, environmentalists, sawmills, everybody, start talking about forestry in a different way so that we can change what's happening. Because as we all know, we have a government target of 8,000 hectares. Some people say we need it up to 16,000 hectares. We're actually only planting 1,500, 2,000 if we're lucky in this year and again next year. So we need to change a lot of things. And Minister Healy-Rae was here yesterday and he's talking about what he can do in the short term through the mid-term review. And then I asked him here yesterday, would he give a commitment to putting a group together from the department, from CIFA, from all the stakeholders, because we need to start looking at the next forestry programme and start planning for that with Europe and get out to Europe, because we are on an uphill struggle here. We're not planting what's required for environmental issues, for timber production issues, so we're falling behind, and every year that we only plant 2,000, we're losing 6,000 hectares. So we're going to end up in a very serious situation in the next 5-10 years. And then, as was discussed here yesterday with some of the officials, the fines that government and Ireland are facing are just huge, huge. And that's going to be a big problem for us as well.
Padraig, I'd say a very topical issue following storms Eowyn and Dara earlier this year and the damage that did to over 20,000 hectares of forests across the country. I'm sure forest owners are coming in looking for advice around what to do and I suppose getting the most value for those trees that are on the ground.
Yes, well, look, it's a huge problem. And it's one of these things, I suppose, forestry and nature, and it did happen, but you're right, the forest owners and farmers, and there was some of them here yesterday very emotional about this, and I can see why, because their timber is on the ground. But our both ministers was here yesterday, Minister Healy-Rae and Minister Martin Hayden, and they've gave a commitment. They couldn't announce it, and I think in fairness to them, they couldn't announce it here to Plowing, because as we know, the budget is coming in 2 or 3 weeks. But they have gave a commitment that they're going to give a reconstitutional grant in the budget. Now, what a reconstitutional grant, or as recon as is known, is it's going to pay the farmers and the forest owners to replant their land. Because the situation at the moment is, as you said, there is a huge amount of timber on the ground. And the cost of taking that off the ground, processing it, getting it to the mills and getting it to market. And the market is slowing, and it's a demand and supply. But there is a big thing that we have to say that's not very popular out there at the moment. And the ministers, 2 ministers, and all of us are going to have to do this. We're going to have to face the sawmills and get them to start paying for timber in cubic metres, because they pay on tonnage, and as that timber is lying in the ground, it's lowest in weight. But if you or I or anybody here goes into the local hardware to buy timber in cubic metres, so the sawmills have to be forced on this one.
Okay.
And it's a touchy subject now, let me say.
Absolutely. Well, Padraig Egan, Chair of CIFA, thanks so much for joining us here at the Forestry Hub.
And you're very welcome back to the stage here at the Agriland tent at the National Ploughing Championships in Screggan in County Offaly. Thankfully, the showers have abated and the crowds are out and about enjoying the sights and everything that is on offer. We've plenty of people here in the Agriland tent as well, joining us for our next panel discussion. And regular viewers of Agriland will be aware that in recent weeks we have been running a series called Farm Safe, Farm Well. That's a series being run in conjunction with ICSA Insurance, and it's funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. As part of this series, we're looking at certain aspects of farm safety and offering practical tips and support to farmers to help make their farms safer places to work, live and enjoy. Joining me on the stage today for the final one of our panels here at the National Ploughing Championships is Gerard Hartnett. Gerard is a Senior Inspector with the Health and Safety Authority. Also, we have Dan Lynham. Dan is a farmer who survived a farm accident, and he's also involved with a very interesting ICSA project, and we'll be talking about that just in a second. And right beside me here is Norma Rohan, and Norma is the co-founder of Embrace Farm, which is a wonderful organisation offering a lot of support to people who have been bereaved as a result of farm accidents, and also people who have suffered serious injuries, and we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes. But firstly, Ger, I don't mean to start the conversation on a negative tone, but the statistics for this year so far, when we look at deaths on our farms, they don't make for pleasant reading. And what do you attribute that to?
So unfortunately, no, it's quite a challenging year. So far this year, there has been 16 farm fatalities. In total, last year there was 12. I suppose for the farming sector, it's been quite a good year, a very active and busy year. So what's causing these type of farm fatalities is the standard falls from heights when maintaining roof sheds. The likes of contact with machinery, PTOs is still an issue, and contact with livestock as well. So they're the main cause of it. And unfortunately this year what we're seeing is older farmers, which we would categorise as those over the age of 65, are disproportionately affected. So 11 of the 16 farm fatalities that have been confirmed this year so far are to farmers over the age of 65 years.
Okay, and look, we might return to older farmers in just a minute. I suppose the main causes, as you said, they're the similar causes that we see year on year, but there's probably certain areas that see spikes in different years, and you know that's something I'm sure the HSA follow keenly, and that's how we target our advice, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, so we would program our work for the year around the cycle of farming, such as doing inspection campaigns and awareness campaigns around calving season, so the dangers of working near livestock, obviously working near machinery around harvesting time, and then the work at heights in particular around this time of year. So we would urge all farmers, I suppose, coming into the winter, if they plan on doing some maintenance works on sheds, be that cleaning gutters or replacing lights or damaged roof sheets, to get a competent contractor to assist them with, or hire a MUP. So you might have seen our demonstration down there, and we're simulating the fall from height and the consequences of doing the job unsafely on your own.
Yeah. Okay, Dan, I'm going to bring you in here because, you know, we're talking about statistics and figures, but behind all of those statistics and figures are real families and real farmers. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. Where are you farming, Dan?
I'm farming in Castledowngeoghan in County Westmeath, along with my son, Donald, and we are currently running a sizable dairy farm. And I do a good lot of the work at the moment because farm labour is very scarce and I get called upon. And as Gerard said, I am over 65 and I know that I'm not as steady on the feet as I used to be, and that is an issue.
Yeah. And bring us back to 1997, Dan, because back in 1997 you had a very serious accident on your farm.
I did, Aisling. In 1997, our farm was quite a busy place, and we had a full-time employee on the farm, as well as myself, and some part-time workers as well. And the full-time employee was Declan, who came 2 years prior to that on his 3 months apprenticeship course. And he must have liked us because he stayed working with us for 2 years. So he got a new job, and he left on the 10th or 12th of October 1997 to his new job.
And he rang me upon the Sunday night before the bank holiday, and he said, I'm not working tomorrow. Do you want me to spread some slurry for you? And I was delighted to hear this. So Declan, being Declan, had a key to our house where he lived for the previous 2 years. He come home from a dance, he let himself in, and he got up early the next morning to go spread some slurry. And as it happened, our own slurry tanker was in use, and he went and he got the end of a slurry tanker. And unfortunately, there was no cover on the PTO. That was nobody's fault, but that's the way it was. So when I got up, I went out to talk to Declan along with my 2 sons, Donald being 12 and David being 9. And as I was walking down to Declan, he was filling the first load of slurry. I sent Donald to open the gate for him down in the field. And David come side by side to me. So I did all the wrong things. I walked up between the tractor and the slurry tanker, and I talked into the tractor to Declan. And he couldn't hear me. So he hopped out of the tractor, and he come round about to where I was. Another wrong thing, I had a loose coat on me, and there was a string hanging down from the anorak. So I turned around this direction to talk to Declan, and we were talking away. And the next thing I heard Declan shouting, "Oh, Dan!" And I stood up straight. I could see that the garments was going around the PTO shaft. I stood up straight, thinking I was going to, you know, be stronger than it was, but no chance. So as I jumped, as I was being swung, standing on this side of the tractor and slurry tanker, Declan jumped up on the lift arm of the tractor, and I got swung roundabout. My head was banged against the lift arm, and my head was going between the tractor, the PTO shaft, and the drawbar when he got to turn off the PTO.
Terrifying, Dan.
So,
and tell us, obviously, that's a very, very serious accident, and you were left with serious injuries.
I was left with very serious injuries. I was left in intensive care in Tullamore Hospital, and thanks to Declan, he sent my son to ring for the ambulance, and he had to cut all my garments that were round about my 2 arms. And I was left with no clothes, nothing. This is nothing on me, except for the bottom part of my Wellington upon my left leg.
I'd say you didn't mind, though, because you wanted to get out of there at that point.
I couldn't do anything.
No.
So I was in Tullamore Hospital in intensive care.
Okay. And you recovered, though, Dan, and you managed to get back out onto the farm.
I have a deformed arm all the time, but that's very minor. I have full working order. I had 3 operations upon my right leg. I had an operation upon the back of my skull, and I'm perfect, I think, or almost perfect, thank God.
It's a strange phrase to use, and over the last few weeks, having been out and about speaking to farmers, Dan, and people who've survived farm accidents, but I've asked them very often, do you feel lucky? And a lot of them say they do, and it's a strange thing to say, especially when you had such a journey of recovery and such horrendous injuries.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to be where I am, because I know that there's so many people, as Jared said, that hasn't survived it. Yeah. And a PTO is not something that very few people survive it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Ger, I'm going to bring you in here. There is a grant available, and currently it is open for farmers to avail of. So if farmers are here at the Plowing, or if they're watching us on the live stream, and if the PTO cover, hopefully it does exist on your farm, but if it's broken, if it's seen better days, there is a grant available. Yeah,
so if they go online to the Department of Agriculture website, they can apply for a grant for the PTO covers. But unfortunately, we are still seeing these type of accidents occurring. And thanks to Dan for telling his story. I'm sure it can't be easy, but it really hits home, you know, the dangers associated with unguarded PTOs.
Yeah. Norma, I'm going to bring you in here because I mentioned Embrace Farm at the start when I was introducing you, and it's a wonderful organisation. Can you tell us a little bit about the background to the organisation and when it was started?
Yeah, Embrace Farm was founded 13 years ago following the death of my own father-in-law on our family farm in County Laois. He was hit by a piece of machinery on his head, and like that he got up and he walked away from it, but within a few hours he went into shock and ended up in Tullamore Hospital again. And The scans, they were sent up to Beaumont and they were reviewed, and the word came back that there wasn't anything that could be done. So the life support that he was on was switched off within 2 days. So I guess that left us kind of reeling in our house, really, you know, because he was a very fit and active 72-year-old man at the time. He was shoveling concrete onto the extension of the house. We were doing it at that time as well. So to see him being taken out of it like that was quite difficult. It was quite difficult for my husband as well, because he felt guilt because he was inside the house with me that day, because we had just brought our first child home from hospital. So Brian wasn't outside the yard with his father, so that weighed heavily on him. So about 2 years later, when we were still going through the grief of what had happened and the shock at what had happened in our farm, we decided to have a remembrance service. And one of the first people we spoke to at the time was the HSA, Ger's predecessor, Pat Griffin, and a number of other people within the farm sector as well. And we set about holding a remembrance service for those who had died, and about doing a roll call of names, because those people that do die, they're more than a statistic. I know Ger has his job and the legislation have their job, but these are people's husbands, fathers, grandparents,
children,
important people in the community. Yeah. And unfortunately, children do die on our farms as well. The year that Liam died, 5 children died on farms that year. And you know, it is other people that come to visit the farm as well that die as well. So Embrace Farm is there now, and what Embrace Farm does is it provides support to farm families following a sudden death, whether that be a farm accident, a suicide, or a sudden medical death. And we'll walk a journey with farm families, and whether it's counselling supports, group supports, information on succession, information on legal, coroner's inquest, whatever it may be, we're there to help the farm families with that now going forward.
And I know as well, when we mentioned children and younger people as well, you've expanded your services and you're offering a new programme as well, focused on younger members of the farm family too. Can you tell us about that?
We do. I think younger people can be a bit forgotten about when they're grieving, you know, maybe young grandchildren or young children, and how do you support them? And I guess their family knows best how to support them, their mums and the people around them. But in Embrace Farm, we find sometimes the kids can feel a bit isolated, because do they know somebody else that's being killed in a farm accident? And, you know, kids don't like standing out like that either. So we provide residential support, a weekend residential bereavement program, where we're bringing in child art therapy, equine therapy, any of those kind of supports that will help children to process what has happened to them and continue to move forward.
Okay. Ger, working at heights, I suppose, is a big topic at the moment. Animals are going to be coming in soon. There's a lot of people trying to keep animals out as long as possible, as long as the ground will allow. But I suppose we're going to be looking at sheds, shed maintenance. You know, there might be broken lights, there might be gutters that have been damaged as a result of the storms that we were talking about just a while ago in terms of forestry. So what is the advice from the HSA when it comes to working at height safely?
Okay, so first of all, just thanks to Norma for telling her story as well. And I think she makes a great point in that, you know, we talk about statistics and a certain number of people have died in farm accidents, but the reality is that these are people with families that live in a community, have family, etc. So that's a very important point. Mm-hmm. On the work at height guidance, so we would urge anybody that's here to visit the HSA stand until this afternoon, where we have guidance on working at height. So the most important point really is, if it's not safe, don't do it, okay? Avoid working on your own when working at height, and use maybe a mobile elevated work platform, some type of fall protection measures where you're protected from a fall, or get a contractor to do the work.
Okay, and look, Dan mentioned about older farmers as well, and you alluded to it earlier when we were looking at the statistics, but I know the HSA has advice. You know, none of us are getting any younger, but I think it's rare to come across a retired farmer. And look, Jerry, you're well aware in the HSA that people want to be involved on farm as long as they possibly can. So what's your advice around that?
And that's a very good point. Older farmers, and we classify that as somebody over the age of 65, have invaluable experience and knowledge to contribute to the farming sector. But what we would urge them to understand is that, as you say, none of us are getting any younger, but to adapt the work that they're doing to their age and their physical ability. So the HSA has produced a guidance document around this, and there's some very basic but supportive information there that we'd urge older farmers to take into consideration. And again, it's all about adapting the work to suit your age and ability.
Okay. Dan, I'm going to bring you in here because I know that you're involved in the ICSA, the Life Focus programme. Can you just briefly tell us about that? Because we're up against it with time, but I want to make sure that the people at home and the people here in Screggan know about that programme.
Life Focus is a small group that was set up within ICSA about 2 years ago, and that all stemmed about Mona O'Donovan, who is Women in Ag, and ICSA is involved in it. And I stood up at a meeting and I told a story, and there was a lot of people stood up that night and told stories as well about what had happened to them on their farms, and a bit about marriage breakup and things like that. And from that, Life Focus was set up to help people, not in opposition to any other group, but just on our own, if people wanted to talk to us. So that's what we're about, helping people in different situations upon modern day farms.
Okay, so to look up ICSA Life Focus.
ICSA Life Focus.
Life Focus, if it's something that you might be interested in. Norma, I suppose when we're talking about the impact of accidents, and mental health and well-being is something that, you know, it goes hand in hand. When we talk about farm safety, it's all-encompassing. And when something devastating happens on farm, the farm has to keep going. And I think that is something that, you know, in maybe other sectors and other walks of life, people don't, you know, get that sometimes. And in your own case, the farm has to keep going, even after a tragedy, when nobody wants to go out and face it.
Yeah, cow, crops and animals don't understand Sunday, difference of Sunday to Monday. I know in the middle of my father-in-law's funeral, the calf feeder broke down and Brian had to leave the wake and go down and sort out that. So things have to keep happening. I guess no farmer goes out there first thing in the morning not expecting to come back home that evening. You know, it's the last thing in their mind. The first thing on any farmer's mind is going out to tend to their crops and their animals as best as they can, and how they've always known how to do it. They don't expect bad things to happen, but they do. And the consequences are lifelong. For example, some family that we have working with us, Dad died in the accident, and his 9-year-old son was in the tractor at the time of the accident. He's now in his 20s, and he is suffering with his mental health every number of years as he matures into an adult. So, you know, these things don't ever leave you, and they don't ever leave a family. It is a lifelong journey that they have to live with the consequences of that bad thing that happened on their farm. It was a split second where something went wrong or whatever it was, but it stays with the family forevermore.
And I think I had the pleasure to come and visit yourself and Brian at home, and I saw some of the artwork that was done by people who've been left behind. It's the only way I can put it. And I was just moved to tears just looking at the names of people who've lost their lives, but equally the phrases that went with them, you know, sure, go on yourself, or, you know, all of the catchphrases that might be associated with a loved one. And it's important that their memories live on, and that people feel that they can speak about their loved ones, because sometimes people feel that life moves on and they may feel stuck in their grief, you know, and that they don't have that space to talk about it.
Yeah, and life does move on for your extended family and for your neighbours and those in your community, while a person is always remembered. Life does move on. But for the widow or the young children left behind, life is forever changed for them. It will never be what it was before. And I suppose in Embrace Farm, what we try and do is bring those people together so that they have some form of outlet once or twice a year that they can try and work on that. And we do that through our therapies, talk therapies, many different therapeutic things that are out there. But mainly it's about connection. And it's about widows meeting other widows, or children meeting other children who've been affected by the same set of circumstances. That can be healing in itself.
And that remembrance service, which is so powerful every year, that I suppose is the impetus and where it all came from, Embrace Farm as well. Yeah. I mean, the connections that are made there, and as you said, people have travelled to that service who may have lost somebody decades ago.
Absolutely, yeah. The last Sunday of June every year, we have that remembrance service. And with the first year we did it, we read out 93 names. This year just passed, we read out 395 names. So the list is growing. Families give us the names. We don't put names on there unless a family gives them to us. But yeah, they travel from the four corners. We have people remembered on that from, there's a US Marine who was home on holidays in Kerry. He's remembered on it. A guy who worked in a factory in Carlow, but he was building farm machinery. He's remembered on it. Back as far as the 1950s and 1960s. As I say, life is forever changed for families when something bad happens on their farm.
And Ger, I'm going to bring you in here from a HSA point of view when it comes to farmers' health, well-being, their mental state when they're going out onto farm. That's all crucial as well, because if you're not feeling well in yourself, if there's something bothering you, if you something stressing you out, that is a prime time for an accident to happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose it's much more topical discussion in the current climate, but your health and well-being is equally as important as any other aspect of your life. If you want to farm well, you need to farm safely, but be in a good state of mind and fit in your health as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think, and we said it over the panels over the last 2 days as well, Ger, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it as well, not going to the GP as often, getting that checkup. I know there's checkups happening here as well, if anybody wants to avail of them, for blood pressure, for anything like that, the regular things. And that may be the first, red flag that there could be something wrong, but that's not necessarily a catastrophe. That could be something that is going to help you in the long term to keep you farming and to keep you well as well.
Yeah, so at our HSA tent there, we have the Irish Heart Foundation also, and they're doing some health checks for anybody that wants to call in. So it's very important for people to keep a check on their health so they can farm safely and farm well.
Okay, and if you go down to the HSA tent, you will find lots more advice when it comes to safety around livestock, of course, and machinery. But that is all we have time for on our panel today. Thank you so much to Dan Lynham, to Ger Hartnett, and to Norma Rohan. And please, a reminder that the Farm Safe, Farm Well series on Agriland is continuing over the coming weeks. You can check out our videos and our articles and our podcasts as part of that series in conjunction with ICSA Insurance and funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine on agriland.ie, and the website and app is where you will find it. Now we're going to head back out to see what else has been happening today in Screggan.
I'm here with James and Tom from Zurich Farm Insurance, lads. I believe he's new on the scene.
That's right, Matthew, yeah. I just joined Zurich Farm Insurance there back in March, and delighted to be part of the team, and really looking forward to the journey in Zurich.
And you're new as well, Tom, are you?
I am. Well, I've been actually in the company for 8 years, but I've recently got a sales rep role, so I'll be covering Wexford, Wicklow, Carlow, Kilkenny, so serves the needs of farmers in that area, so really looking forward to it as well. Yeah.
And what's the main message you try to get out there to farmers when you're going out and about?
Well, I suppose the most important message to get to farmers, Matthew, is the importance of reviewing your insurance, every year, I guess. But I suppose also looking for an alternative that's in the market. And I suppose the good news for farmers is that Zurich is a very credible alternative to the providers that are there at the moment. We have a field of very experienced people on the road, and it really is important, I suppose, to take that time to review it and go through it. And I suppose what I would say is, where a good alternative is provided, that the farmer would support that alternative and keep the competition in the market.
Boys, thanks a million for talking to me today.
You're welcome.
Lads, welcome to the Plowing. How are you getting on? Tell me your names and where you're from.
I'm Owen Lacey from Blackwater, County Wexford. I'm Owen Cash from Blackwater, County Wexford.
Right, lads, tell me, what's the story? Do you go ploughing every year? Are you interested in farming? Do you come from farms yourselves?
Oh, every year since I was a baby. So I'm the same too.
And what brings you, I assume you should be in school, so what brings you to the ploughing?
Oh, sure, you do anything when I go to school.
Tell me the most things you're interested. Tell me, every year, you make a beeline for different things. Explain to me what you think is great about ploughing.
Sure. I love the machinery myself now, the tractors and I, they're the ploughing, there's a few locals ploughing out in it there, we all come up and see it, but should be out supporting them and everything like that.
And tell me the kind of farms you come from and the kind of things that you be working on back home.
I come from a tillage farm there, we have a few suckler cows and beef as well, but sure, we be sort of getting ready to start sowing now. We come up here for a day or two and then we start back at it there.
How did you find the year this year for the tillage and the crop?
I was good the year, sort of getting the harvest saved, but our crops were poor with drought. But I was still a good dry year. You start cutting and you stay at it, like there was no stopping with rain, but that's it.
I'd say you're cutting and harvesting crops since you were knee-high to a grasshopper.
I am, yeah.
What about yourself? Tell me about your farm.
Well, we have tillage as well and a few sucklers as well. So,
how do you find the sucklers?
Oh, well, I'd be more of a man for the tillage, but you get nothing but hardship with the cattle.
Hardship with the cattle, but the machines are nice.
Yeah, well, sure, look.
Big money for machines, though. How, like, what?
That's where you be going
do you
for
invest?
Second-hand stuff.
Second-hand, yeah. And what kind of kit do you have on this farm?
We have a New Holland tractors now, and we have a Dites combine. She's gets the job done.
Are you a New Holland man?
I am, yeah.
And what kind of kit do you have?
We've John Deere and Fence there, and Class Lexi and combine. So we're doing a bit there anyway.
Have you been down around the machinery, lads? Are you wishful thinking?
Sure, you'd be hopeful, but I'd say take a fair checkbook there to buy some of that. But the horn, you'll buy it anyway. Maybe they'll let you up on it.
Are you tire kicking, lads?
Sort of.
Well, listen, enjoy the pound. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
I'm here with Detective Garda Fiona Reedy, an Irish international rugby player. Fiona, how are you getting on?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm trying to figure out where you get time to balance all of this. You're a dairy farmer, I believe.
Dairy and beef farmer, yeah. Well, my father and my brother are really, and I am the farm hand when I'm free and available. And yeah, my job is quite busy as well. And obviously when I played rugby for Ireland, that was another distraction away from the farm. But it's lovely to get back to the farm and back to your roots and give a dig out when you can, for sure.
So, like, growing up, was the dream always to join the Guards or to play for Ireland or to run the farm? Like, what was the intention here?
Yeah, I probably always thought I'd be a farmer, to be honest. But I also wanted to be a guard. So it's just how things develop as you grow up and as you enter adult life as to what you end up doing, But I'm very attached to the farm and I love getting out whenever I can, for sure.
And do you still get dragged in at the weekend to work?
Absolutely, yeah. It could be anything, it could be milking the cows or just giving a dig out, fencing or anything else. But it's great. I'm very lucky that my brother's at home full time with my dad and they're farming. And then I'm happy to help whenever I can.
And was this something you also did throughout your playing career?
Yeah, so I played for Ireland from 2015 to 2020. And I was also in Templemore in 2017. So part of my rugby playing life wasn't when I was in the Guards and some of it was when I was in the Guards. So it's just been a balancing act really as to, when are you free to do jobs? So you kind of plan ahead to do farm jobs at home around everything else.
And are you ever free to do anything?
Very little at the moment, my brother would say. He's trying to catch me for jobs out the last few weeks, but I've been away with the World Cup and stuff as well, just supporting the Irish girls over in the UK. So I'm kind of back now, so jobs will be done next week.
And in terms of difficulty, is it
catching criminals? Is it making tackles? Or is it, you know, milking cows every morning?
In terms of work, is it?
Yeah, what's the most difficult?
I suppose in my role at work, it's quite challenging and it's varied. There's a lot of physical work in terms of catching criminals, of course, but there's also a lot of paperwork as well around it. And it's good variety in terms of being out and about and meeting the public and helping keep people safe. And then obviously bringing people to justice as well, which is why we do it ultimately.
Fiona, thanks a million.
No bother, thanks a million.
And you're very welcome back to the stage here at the Agriland tent. And now we're joined by a lot of women. And yes, because we're going to talk about women in agriculture, the importance of having women to the front and centre, as they rightly should be, when it comes to our agriculture sector. I'm delighted to be joined here by Aisling Malloy from Teagasc, furthest away from me, Mona O'Donoghue Concannon, who is chair of the Women in Agriculture Stakeholder Group. We have Maria Walsh, Fine Gael MEP from Midlands Northwest, and right beside me here is Lauren Ennis, a young farmer from County Offaly. Ladies, thank you so much. Lauren, are you enjoying the ploughing?
Yeah, I was here yesterday, so I had my fun yesterday, back to work mode here today on the panel, so
yeah,
enjoying it so far.
What have you been enjoying out around the site?
Honestly, just the new technology. I think it's great because it's kind of a one-stop shop. Like if you're looking to price a new tractor or a new shed, you know, it's good. Everything's here. What more could you want? Like.
Excellent. Tell us about the farm at home in Offaly.
Yeah, so obviously it's my family farm, so we run a sheep and dry stock enterprise, and then obviously I'm in college, so to put myself through college I work on a dairy farm during like the weekends or during summer.
Yeah, which would be very common for a lot of young farmers.
Yeah, no, it is. I think a lot of people, like even if you have a farm at home, a lot of them have to go work on out farm just because the cost of college is quite expensive now.
Yeah, and what's the end goal? Do you want to stay in farming?
Yeah, no, I definitely am. I kind of knew from a young age I was very much committed in what I wanted to do with farming, so that's kind of the hope.
Okay. Mona, I'm going to come to you because the Women in Agriculture Stakeholder Group, can you tell us a little bit about the group firstly?
Absolutely. So we were set up in 2021. We were looking at how we were going to get women recognised in Ireland. As most of you know, there's a 13% of women in Ireland that are only recognised as farmers, and we've identified there's always over 70,000 active women on farms on a daily basis. So a group of the farm organisations came together and we decided we'd look at how we would tackle that and investigate further. So we set up the group and we've really just been looking at how things are progressing in the agricultural field.
Yeah, and I know that you had a series of roadshows last year, Mona, and we were delighted in Agriland to be part of those roadshows. And there was real energy in the room. There was real, I suppose, issues that women felt that they could raise, you know, in that forum, in that safe space as well. And I think for the group, did you find that very useful?
Absolutely. It was really, really important for us. Our main focus is to give a voice to the women, just who are on the farm on a daily basis, those who may not be in farm organisations, because for them, they might be caring at home, or they might have elderly, or they might even have to have an off-farm job, but come home in the evening and do work. So for us, we wanted to target these women who may not get this space. So what we did was we liaised with as many women as we could, and we asked what they wanted. And what they wanted was to have a little conversation about what affects them. So what we did was we set up 3 roadshows around Ireland. We invited farmers to come and tell their story. And it's only the start of what we hope to do. We hope to do it more and more, but you know, it's hard to get funding for all this. We have to fund it ourselves. So we found it really, really beneficial to get these voices out there. And there's so many women in Ireland that are out there on a daily basis that just, for whatever reason, are not recognised, and it's sometimes taken advantage of, or it's taken for granted. There is a woman working, you know what I mean? And for us, I look back at my mother's generation, and these women were the people who held up the community, held up the farming industry. They're always the backbone, and it's about time we give them the recognition they deserve. And for me, we found that the younger farmers are kind of taking it for granted now because of Instagram and because of everything and the role models we have, that it always was there. But it's not. It's only in the last 10 years since we've started these movements that we are actually getting recognition for women in farming.
And Mona, of course, you're farming yourself. Tell us about your own setup.
I am. I'm farming with my husband, my brother and my daughter in Galway. So we run a dairy, beef and suckler farm. So I have the suckler side, my husband has the dairy side, and we intermingle between us.
The two sides of the house, literally.
Absolutely. So originally when myself and my husband met, he was a dairy farmer, and at the time, dairying wasn't going the best, especially for the sale of calves. So he came home from the mart one day and he was after selling an Angus calf for €10. I didn't speak to him for 3 days. Literally didn't speak to him, and I said, I'm finding a piece of land, I'm going to lease the piece of land, and I'm setting up a suckler herd. And he looked at me and he goes, no. I was like, yes. So
watch me.
3 weeks later, I had a farm located. I had 70 animals in a shed. It was winter time, because of course that's what you do in winter time.
Of course.
I filled up the shed, and let's just say the rest is history with a big suckler herd.
You certainly like a challenge, Mona, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Aisling, can I bring you in here, because you work with Teagasc. Can you tell us about your role with Teagasc firstly?
Yeah, so I'm working as an advisor on the Future Beef programme. We've 23 farms around the country, and there are demonstration farmers in the suckler beef area. So we're they're all representative, I suppose, of the farm types in the area they're based, in terms of land size, farm type, stock type, all that side of it. And
yeah,
they're a pleasure to work with. And they're all sponsored by the meat factories then as well.
Yeah, and a good year for beef.
It is, absolutely, and I know I've said it numerous times to the farmers I'm working with, but it's about time they're getting paid for all the work that they're putting in and all they're producing off their farm.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Aisling, you've done research into this area when it comes to women agriculture. Can you tell us about that research and what you found?
Yeah, no problem. I was only saying to Lauren when we were chatting out the back, it's probably coming up 9 or 10 years ago now at this stage. So, but everything that Mona was saying, it's all still relevant today. So things have progressed, I suppose, but to go back on it, I was based in Wexford at the time. We did a combination of, there was a survey, so 233 women based in the southeast, and we would have done kind of group interviews and focus groups and all that side of it as well. But the big things, I suppose, that came out, and there was a focus on how Teagasc could improve our services towards farm women as well, was number one, again, I'm going to repeat now a lot of what Mona said, but the lack of recognition of these women on farms. They're not there in the national stats. Like at the time I was doing my research, we had to go back to Census in Agriculture to see how many farm holders were women at that stage. It was in around 12.4%, I think, at the time. That's only 13.4%, so not a lot has changed in 10 years. So that was the first one. But that the women themselves even didn't recognise they were doing the work. So we had a list of farm tasks, and even though they said they weren't involved in the farm, there was something like 64% of them that were involved in one or more tasks and just didn't classify it as valued work on the farm.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's just kind of, I suppose, second nature that they just go out, they feed the calves, or they maybe register calves online or whatever, and they don't see that as being the farmer.
Yeah, and their name isn't on any herd number, and they get, no recognition maybe from the family or whatever themselves, and there would have been a lot of comments to back that up. But then I suppose it comes from the point of view that the most common route into farming for a woman is through marriage. And, in some respects, you're probably on the back foot then straight away because, you're not out front and centre. And then there's the whole family name dynamics as well. But we would have come up with, from the research, a list of recommendations of things to help improve that. And like Mona was listing off a few things there, that have really improved over the last 10 years. It's much more visible now. And, it is very hard to be what you can't see. And, that goes across all media, out on the ground, TikTok, everything from that point of view.
100%. Maria Walsh, I'm going to bring you in here. You're an MEP. You're representing the Midlands Northwest constituency. What are the European Union going to do to help women farmers? You're hearing here firsthand what the challenges are, and it seems from what Aisling is saying, and Mona and Lauren, not a lot is changing over the years. We seem to be able to identify the problems, but the supports is what we need.
For sure, and just to stress to those watching and here in the Plough, as the only Irish female MEP sitting on agriculture, everything I touch, not just in agriculture and rural development committee, but also in the gender equality committee, has an element, encompasses everything that has been shared. I come from a very small dry stock farm in the west of Ireland. I grew up in rural Ireland. That's where, whether you like it or not, my personality came from, in the sense of being able to roll up my sleeves and get on with it. And everything that has been shared is right. We as a country in the last CAP, or this current CAP that we're in, ourselves and Spain were the only 2 countries out of the 27 to have a ring fence funding attached and really identify women in farming. I'm even embarrassed to say that, really, because I think, to everybody's point, women have been around the ringside and the front gate for a long time, generations. And that was down to Mona and the Women in Agriculture group that making that happen. So when we say 10 years, I really think it's even been shorter. And to the point, we are seeing recognition. Next CAP is where we're at now. For me personally, and I know many of my colleagues would also agree so, making sure there's not just a 3% ring fenced, it's doubled, if not tripled. That also has to go along lines of generation renewal, because while yes, we need to identify women, we also need to figure out what's happening in the generation renewal piece and get more younger farmers in. I do a lot of work with Dr. Maura Farrell at the University of Galway. And again, similar to everything on the panel that has been shared, the big 3 takeaways are still the issue. A, access to land, access to capital to even start or scale, and then caring responsibilities, be it with children or elderly parents or the volunteer roles that many women take on. And for me, it's not just what has happened in these last number of years or what's going to happen in the next 18 months in terms of negotiations. And trust me, I know many of these women here and many more will hold us accountable, and rightly so, to make sure their funding is put in place at 100% with inflation in terms of CAP. But we're also trying to right the wrong for those in the room who might not be, and you talked to rightly so about younger generations maybe assuming this has always been the case. When we joined the EU, or EEC at the time, in 1973, you saw the removal of the marriage bar, where women, whether they liked it or not, because of marriage, prior to that point, had to leave their full-time or part-time jobs. And so we have generations of financial instability and disparity that we're still making up for. And then the cultural beliefs that are attached to it.
And when it comes to that independence for women, their own pension, their own, in later life.
So for me, it's not just what we see on the bottom line of the CAP and the next CAP, or what the National Exchequer needs to kick into, but it is also making sure a farmer, and I'm a Green Cert farmer. I did a master's in ag to figure out the mentality around why we can't get access to land. I have as many difficulties at my kitchen table with my father when I talk about scaling a business. I bought 5 Galway pedigree sheep 2 weeks ago. He only started just talking to me, my father, because I want to scale and grow an enterprise, and that's really challenging conversations.
So your father not a fan of sheep, then, I take it?
Not a fan of sheep.
No, okay.
Not a fan. And then, anyways, he'll be given out, because if he's watching this, I'm in big trouble.
So you're aware of the challenges.
Absolutely.
And look, Lauren, I'm going to bring you in here, because you are a young farmer, and we have been talking about the future of farming here at the Agriland stand over the last 3 days. And obviously, generational renewal, we have a new report that has come out from the Commission, Generational Renewal as well. There's 30-odd recommendations. But I suppose in a practical sense, Lauren, for you, what are the challenges to get farming and to get over the line and have your herd number and get farming?
Yeah, so I think obviously just kind of circling back to what the women have said, like a big factor is cost, initial startup cost, even price of land, price of cattle this year through the roof. Yep. But also kind of I feel like as a young woman, you kind of have that extra bit of a barrier, because the system's not really set up to kind of propel you on. So that's kind of an issue as well. But I would definitely say cost is the biggest for young farmers.
And I suppose for you, Lauren, telling the story of young farmers, you're very passionate about young farmers and female farmers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, though, it's kind of nice because then you kind of have a voice for, your counterparts who are the same age.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Mona, I know we've had specific schemes, when we come to TAMS, for example, there's a women's specific scheme. Do you think that's a step in the right direction, and do you think that's been well received?
Well, seeing as I was the one who actually suggested it.
Did you go in with 100% and came out with 60?
No, I went in with a very different scheme to what we came out for. I came in, my group, when we got together, we were like, how are we going to bring money to the table? And we sat down and we said, well, if young farmers can get a 60%, why can't women? So our point was that we wanted to target the women who were on the ground, who could maybe be encouraged to get on the herd number. But unfortunately, like the department like to do, they decided to make it more complicated and made them, if they weren't on the single farm payment in 2022, they had to do a green cert, which we have huge issues over, not because of the green cert in its entirety, but ask a busy woman to have to do a green cert just to get the 20%. It doesn't make sense. These women are out there, they're raising kids, they're trying to manage the farm, they're trying to do everything, and now they're expected to do a green cert. Now, we did put a counter argument to it, and Minister Hayden, when he sees me, he's like, I know, every time he sees me, he just goes, I can't deal with this one. But anyway, so we said...
He says the same about me, though.
It's okay. We were saying prior learning, if we can do it over little modules, or acknowledge the time, acknowledge everything, could that not be as good?
Like the life experience, that there'd be a value put on that.
But unfortunately, at the moment, that's in discussions. But he knows I won't. But like these schemes...
So beyond 2027, say, and looking ahead to the new CAP, do you want to see a rejigging of stuff?
It has to be. I've been here on the... I work with the ICSA, so I've been on the stand for the last 3 days, and everyone that will come in and listen to me, I've said to them, we need to look at the schemes, we need to look at different. And the one thing I will find, when we started out, we were just representing women in farming, but now we're representing women and young farmers, because the issues that women have, young farmers have. So our role has evolved as well. And we just need to look at these schemes. We need to make them easier. Instead of putting barriers in front of people, we need to break down the barriers, because that's what we were set up for, is to break down barriers, not put barriers up.
Aisling, part of your research touched on lack of confidence as well, and I think that kind of circles back to what Mona's talking about as well. You know, women often they have the caring role in the house and probably outside, maybe on the farm as well, and having the time to, you know, to upskill or to get this training, and also the confidence as well to go and train. Do you think that's still a big issue all these years on from the research you did?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose like we're probably the wrong people on this panel to be talking about it because we're here, but there's a lot, I suppose, that are there that are invisible that, you know, and it's because of that confidence. And, you know, the likes of the work, I always enjoy listening to Mona, like the likes of the work that she's doing to progress that. There's female discussion groups been piloted. We were involved in, there was South East Women in Farming Group, a West Women in Farming Group nationally, like years ago as well, or not so long ago as well. But the whole idea is to give the confidence. And like what we're looking for, it's not that we want to be seen to be better or anything, it's about an equality. So, you know, that we've the same access to capital, land, resources as what men have. We're seen in the national stats, you're appreciated for your work. And part of that is getting the 60% TAMs. It is going into female discussion groups. And with the objective, you get people on herd numbers, you get them visible, seen, and, you know, then it's equal. So you can have a 50-50% discussion group for male and female farmers, and that they're confident enough to be there. So that's the overall aim, is that you get them to that point.
We're fresh out of time, ladies. We could talk a lot longer, but I think we've covered some really important ground there. And look, I think it's a really important topic, and it's something we will continue to discuss on Agriland. My thanks to Aisling Malloy from Teagasc, Mona O'Donoghue Concannon, Chair of the Women in Agriculture Stakeholder Group, Maria Walsh Fine Gael, MEP from Midlands North West, and Lauren Ennis, who's a farmer in County Offaly. We're heading back out onto the site to see what else is happening this afternoon.
I'm here with Sergeant Graham Kavanagh, who's Laois and Offaly Crime Prevention Officer, and I'm also here with Barry Carey, who's the IFA Crime Prevention Executive. So, Graham, can you just tell me, what are the biggest challenges that are facing farmers in crime and rural crime at the moment?
So one conversation piece that has come up for me repeatedly over the last 18 years, based down in Laois Offaly, is the issue of certain groups that feel that they have a right of entitlement to trespass on people's lands, and then the whole area around wildlife crime. It causes massive distress to landowners, and it's certainly a conversation piece that I've heard over the last couple of days here at the Ploughing, but it's something that comes up repeatedly, and yet as a society we've never really challenged it and managed to get on top of it.
And then, Barry, so how are you mitigating these problems? They are a big issue in rural Ireland at the moment.
As Graham said, it's a huge concern to farmers and landowners, and from an animal welfare point of view also. But mitigation-wise, it's a multi-agency approach to this task, and on Garda Síochána, IFA and other stakeholders have a protocol in place which is advising farmers what to do and landowners what to do in the event of coming across illegal hunters and trespassers. And this is working well with numerous interventions by the various stakeholders.
That's great. Well, thank you, Barry and Graham, for taking the time to chat to me, and best of luck with everything at the Plowing now, and hopefully everything goes well with the launch of the plan.
Thanks
very much.
Thank you.
We're here at Board Bia's stand at Plowing 2025, and I'm joined by Board Bia's Sheepmeat and Livestock Sector Manager, Seamus McMiniman. Seamus, tell us a little bit about, I suppose, how the sheep trade has fared out over the past 12 months.
I suppose at the minute the sheep prices are sort of stabilising a bit. I know they've come back in the last few weeks, but we're stabilising sort of at that 30-40 cent above last year.
And Seamus, I suppose on a price point, how is Irish Irish lamb prices, we'll say, comparing to the rest of our counterparts in Europe?
Yeah, like our price does tend to lag behind, but I suppose we're different than other sheep producing countries in that we're a net exporter, they're a net importer. So obviously there's a preference for your own domestic production. I suppose in more recent times we've seen a very strong increase in the Australian-New Zealand price, and that actually works to our advantage because it takes away their competitive advantage when you export it to Europe then.
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose where would our key markets be for lamb, generally speaking, for Irish lamb?
Yeah. We export about 85% of all the sheep meat we produce, and most of that goes into Europe. The large majority of it. Some carcass balance maybe further beyond or whatever, but the most valuable markets to us are your France, your Germany, your Sweden, your Italy. Those are the growing markets, and those are where the big customers are that want volume as well.
Yeah. And of course we've seen plenty of positivity this year, even in Cullio prices. Where does that, I suppose, meat produce go? What kind of markets does that end up in, and what kind of products?
Yeah, like the Cullio trade. A lot of that goes into Italy, some into Canada, some goes into the UK then for that food service type trade. But no, there's been a very firm demand, and I suppose that's coming off a smaller sheep flock across Europe. There's obviously less mature sheep being processed as well.
And we had some positive news this week, Seamus, as well, where one of our sheep meat processors recently supplied the first lamb, I think it was, to the US market.
Yeah, no. So the market access was granted last year, and this was the first consignment. So we actually had some of the major customers actually in Ireland last week visiting farms and factories and things, and the product arrived in market late last week. So we'll be following that up with a launch for Irish lamb, an event just targeting high-end restaurants and chefs in New York now coming towards the end of October, just to give lamb a bit of traction in the market. It's a growing market for lamb, and there's growing demand. Their domestic production is quite low, and they import it out of Australia and New Zealand, but that demand is growing, and there's a space there for us for the higher end of the market.
So that's a positive development this week, I suppose. And how does Board Bia see the lamb trade going into the end of this year and maybe into 2025?
Yeah, well, I suppose the lamb kit at the minute is running about a third lower every week than it was. There is tighter supplies, combination of less lambs coming from the north, less the contraction in the O numbers. I suppose the contraction here in numbers is also seen in mainland Europe as well. So I suppose we would expect some sort of stability in the trade, or similar at least to last year in terms of the numbers and the demand. I suppose the increase in the beef prices probably worked to the lamb's advantage in that there's not that big price disparity anymore. Lamb is maybe a little bit more affordable when you're comparing it to beef on a shelf.
And Seamus, of course, your role also deals with livestock and the livestock trade. Can you tell us a little bit about how, I suppose, Irish livestock exports have been performing this year compared to other years as well?
Yeah, no, it's been a record year probably for live exports at this stage. We're 310,000 or thereabouts at the minute.
I suppose what's been driving that? What's what sector has been driving that, and maybe what markets have been driving that, Seamus?
I suppose obviously up until now, this time of the year, the first half of the year tends to be calves, and the demand for the calves there is coming from a contraction in the cow herd in Europe. Issue with blue tongue. We're the only country in Europe that doesn't have blue tongue. Makes our animals very attractive. So the biggest markets at the minute are Spain, the Netherlands, and then into Italy. Obviously, there's challenges in some of those markets, but the short-term outlook is quite good.
So I suppose at the current moment, anyways, Ireland are in a really unique, positive position to supply livestock and obviously beef supplies and others to key European markets.
Yeah, I suppose we had a very strong start of the year, and maybe in the last 6 or 8 weeks that has quietened down. I suppose we have a very strong deadweight beef trade here. Our live trade is very expensive, and whenever you start getting ahead of the European beef trade, it tends to have an impact on the live trade also. So you've seen the trade sort of fall off in the last few weeks, but there is plenty of demand in the market. There's a 10% reduction in beef production in Europe, so that'll drive demand for Irish livestock.
Yeah, so maybe not really so many of them O-grade type cattle going out now where there would have been other years, but still plenty of maybe them top E and U grade weanling bulls heading out, Jim.
Yeah, there's good demand for those better animals. Once you go into Greece, Italy, that sort of market, the plainer stock tends to go into Italy, Eastern Europe, and some of that will be produced there. Some of it go onwards then to the third countries when it's 300 kilos or 350. But there is a firm demand there, and is underpinned by that contracting herd.
So plenty of positivity to look forward to there. And Seamus, thank you very much for joining us on the live stream this morning.
No worries, thank you very much, Bradley.
Back to studio.
And you're very welcome back to the stage here in the Agriland tent. I'm delighted to be joined by the President of the Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association, the ICSA, Sean McNamara, and also by Katie Cooney, who's a young farmer from County Cavan. Sean, how are you enjoying the ploughing? You look tired. Has it been a long 3 days?
Yeah, it has been a long 3 days, but it was a good 3 days. There's great activity in our tent for the last 3 days, a lot of people in and out. We had a lot of good discussions, how generation renewal and different things, life focus and different things. It went very well. I think it was the best town we were in years, I'd say, in the line that with people coming in and out and interested. I think farmers are a little better humoured than they were in the last couple of years. Things are looking up and farmers are just in better form, and it means an awful lot. A few years ago, you come along and you see farmers, prices were bad, things were going bad, and farmers were in bad humour and didn't care whether to talk to you now or not, but now they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there a hive of activity in the ICSA tent over the last couple of days? A lot of people coming in and out. A lot of cups of tea drank, I'd say.
A lot of cups of tea and a lot of sandwiches there. Like I said, we've toasted sandwiches for anyone that comes in. So actually, you look for a toasted sandwich, we have it for you.
You'll be inundated. But I think that's the part of it, it's the social aspect to the ploughing. I think that's very important. There's a lot of business done here. There's a lot of, innovation. There's a lot of free pens for young people. There's a lot of different attractions. But I think for farmers, and farming can be a tough occupation, Sean. It can be a lonesome occupation, and particularly for the sectors that the ICSA was established to represent. Oftentimes, they're working on their own all the time. So coming to something like this or going to the local market, it's a crucial outlet.
Yeah, it is crucial. And just when you're talking about the ploughing, what I see here at the ploughing is a lot of older men like myself or getting my age group. But I think to look at the ploughing today or any day, the big thing is what I do see is missing is from the 20 to 40 age group. They're all working and they're not there at the ploughing. And that's what I've seen this year now mostly. The big thing as farmers, I do say, is to socialise, go to marts, talk to one another, talk about their problems. Doesn't matter how small, how big, there's always someone to listen to you. And a lot of farmers don't do that out there. They go into themselves and they don't go anywhere, and it's a bad job. You go to your local mart, put in an hour, go round, chat, fellas, it makes an awful difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you mentioned generational renewal, and here at the Agriland stand for the last couple of days, we've been talking about the future of farming, and Katie will talk to you in just a second about this. But this week we saw the Minister for Agriculture launching the Commission on Generational Renewals report containing some 31 recommendations, Sean. And we were waiting for this report. It got a little bit delayed, but we've eventually got it. What's your impression of that report and what's in it? Because generational renewal, there's no quick fix to this, and it's multifaceted, and in some cases it can be very individual to particular farms.
Yeah. The big thing in that report is the Minister for Agriculture did not have enough meetings with farmers on the ground to find out what they wanted. That's our farm organisations on the ground to find out what they wanted.
Well, I must say, he didn't write the report now. It was the Commission on Generational Renewal.
I know that, but
yeah.
They didn't meet, whoever it was, didn't meet farmers. I'm happy enough with some of it. I'm not happy with other parts of it. Like the way I look at it, the problem is with us in Ireland, we're gone for schemes. Everything is schemes, and schemes, and schemes, and schemes. And what, as you all know, with schemes, there's penalties. Now, the way I look to see generation renewal or anything like that, I'd like the incentives put in there for farmers, for the older farmer, for the younger farmer coming in, incentives. And if they do it, they get paid. And if they don't get paid. But like, we're gone to a society now that everything has to be a scheme. And you have everyone expecting, you have everyone paid. And what the big problem with the schemes is too, that you're coming along and it's cost a serious amount of money in administration. A lot of the money in the scheme is going towards administration. The farmers only get a minuscule what the farmers are getting. And it'll be the same with this if we don't do it right. We have to do it right. We have to get some sort of a retirement package for the older farmer, or the older farmer himself, and we also have to get a package for the younger farmer to come in. We can't expect farmers, like I have...
Well, there are payments in that plan, you know, in this generational renewal plan. There are payments that are outlined for both younger and older farmers, but you don't feel it goes far enough?
I don't feel it goes near far. I see 25,000 there for an older farmer. So that would buy a good second-hand car. You know what I mean? If you had to buy a car. I don't think there is... the big thing with young farmers...
Well, what figure would you put on it, Sean? What figure would you put on it?
I'd be entitled to double that figure.
So you think 50,000?
Yeah. I'm seeing, like, he's talking about it's going to cost 1 billion, right? And 1 billion in this world, today's world isn't a lot. Like we see the government spending 6 billion on the iPass centres. I'm not getting it, but that's what they're spending. And they're talking about throwing 1 billion, our best industry in the country, which is producing high quality food and everything, and put just 1 billion into it. If we don't take this serious at this stage, we've lost a generation of farmers at the moment, and we're going to lose another generation. Like I said at home, my place, I have 2 lads involved in farming with me. I have my daughter. We've 3 different enterprises. I have 2 lads involved in. One lad is exporting cattle, the other lad is home on the farm with me. We have a daughter who's growing her own greenhouse, all the food for the house in the greenhouse, the whole lot. And like that, she was selling duck eggs just to make a few pounds. Now she's working a job to sell duck eggs. And what happened to the ducks? A pine marten came in and killed all the ducks. So that finished her.
Well, as somebody with ducks at home as well, it is the, you know, so you're keenly aware of what's going on for the next generation, you know, Sean, is what you're trying to say. And Katie Cooney, I'm going to bring you in here as well, because we've been delighted this week when we're speaking to the farm organisations of having young farmers joining us on all of these panels as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the farm in Cavan?
So we have a suckler farm at home. So it's myself, my father, my mother. I have a brother in Australia, and I have one sister, and she is a graphic designer. So I kind of took an interest. We have a small suckler farm, so we have a few suckler cows, and then I got into a few sheep myself. And then I kind of took a bit of an interest, and I went to done my Green Cert in Ballyhaise in Cavan. And then I'm in my last year in Dundalk College doing a degree in ag. So kind of continue my interest in an area that I always had interest when we were younger, whether you stood in the gap or whether you done something or you were roared or shouted at. It was a bit of crack, I thought anyway, so I went ahead with it, and I thought that maybe it was the best way forward for me, because I had looked at my dad, like, he's always worked off farm. So I said, well, if he's working off farm and he's been farming for so long, it's obviously not viable. So I said, I'm going to get myself I'm going to have another job and farm part-time, because it's just the only option really now.
Yeah, and you want to keep farming even on the part-time basis, or, you know, but it's not easy, Katie, because if you're working a 9 to 5, say, and a lot of farmers do, say, if they have suckler animals or if they have sheep, and that can be quite exhausting at the same time.
It's quite exhausting, but at home, like, as I was saying earlier, like, it's a thing of a calf being born, like let's say in spring, or the lambs. Like the lambs is my best example. If you have lambs and they're born in the shed, and the day that you let them lambs out of the shed and see them playing around the field, and then when you go on and follow the cycle on to bring in lambs to your mart, your factory, stuff like that, and you see then the end product of that, whether it's money, whether it's what, but it's a labour of love. It's doing it and you enjoy doing it, and that's what I find, like, you can't put a price on something that you enjoy and something that makes you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what do you see as the barriers? You're a young farmer, and I don't, you know, I'm not sure if you've read that report that the Commission has put forward, but in a practical sense, what do you see as the barriers for young farmers and friends of yours who want to get into farming and stay in farming and keep the home farm going?
Well, I know, like, if you look at suckler enterprise, yes, it's great this year, but even if you look at beef, like the prices in the last few years, it's not enticing for a young person. And the likes of maybe dairy, where you have a steady income and you have a guaranteed income that you're going to have a paycheck every week or every month for your milk. Like, people need security nowadays, because everything in the world, like no matter what you go to buy, like food, land, everything has got so expensive, and you need that security. You need to know that you're going to be making money from it. And
I think what's lost in, you know, everybody's talking about cost of living, Sean, and I'd say you'll say the same, and people are saying, oh, farmers are getting huge prices for cattle. But at the same time, farmers have to go out and buy food as well, like, you know, so they're getting, you know, they're getting finally paid, but they do have to pay the high prices as well in the supermarkets.
But when you look at it in another way, farming has gone through so many bad years, and people are judging maybe, what, a 10, 15-year cycle of bad years on one good year. And you can't judge anything on that. Like, next year, you know, the price of maybe tech companies could go up, but some tech companies might have had 20 bad years to have one good year.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's how some businesses are judged.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I just want to touch on a couple of topics with you, Sean. You know, very topical issues. The nitrates derogation, I suppose, being the most to the fore this week, because we saw those results coming out from the EPA. They didn't make for great reading across those 20 areas, and that's a cause for concern as we look to get that renewal of the nitrates derogation beyond the end of this year.
That is true. Nitrates derogation is serious at the moment. If it goes ahead, like, you could be talking about 170 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. It's going to be a big job to get it stopped or get it right. But then, in our walk of life, in our job, we're saying sucklers and sheep, not as many people, it's not affecting many people in nitrates derogation.
Absolutely, but it is an important thing for the industry as a whole.
It is, but that's
farming as a whole.
Yeah, that's what the trouble is. Like, if it doesn't affect us, I'm not taking the party, but it doesn't affect us along with dairy, and it'd be the big thing that we'll have to do something for this nitrate derogation, which is looking like we'll have to do something on our lands, the same as the boys is in nitrate derogation. That's the big problem, like, you know.
So you feel that we could retain it, but what will be the knock-on impact for sectors outside of dairy?
Yeah, I would say, like, we retain probably the 7,000 farmers or 8,000 farmers in nitrate derogation. So we're going to contain it for them 7,000 or 8,000. But what's the other 102,000 going to do then? Like, are we going to pay for these 7,000 or 8,000? That's the big thing. That's the big question I'd be asking.
Yeah, absolutely. TB, it's also a big issue. I mean, obviously, maybe more towards the dairy side of the house as well. But, you know, we have a strategy. What's your thoughts on how we're approaching this at the moment? It's a huge issue, and it's going to cost a lot of money. You were talking about money for generational renewal and turning the tide on TB. That's going to cost a lot of money.
It's going to cost serious money. Like, TB is a serious, it doesn't matter what you're sort of farming, TB is a serious issue. It causes serious cash flows in farms where men goes down with TB locked up. You can sell the cattle now through the different marties, but even though you're locked up, at the same time, it causes serious stress in families, serious mental well-being in families. Like, it's all right, you're locked up with maybe 70 or 80 cows and and no father and no everything. Like it's at the moment it's a serious situation, TB. But
and it lasts for years.
It doesn't go in a minute.
I've spoken to farmers who've been depopulated. I'm sure you have as well.
I have been.
And for years later, I mean, I've spoken to farmers who will break into tears remembering loading up the cattle that day and the silence in the yard, and it is devastating.
Yeah, like in 2002, I was depopulated. It took me 15 years to get my herd built back up again. Like there wasn't the same competition in house. Yeah. So it took me 15 years to get back up my herd to where I was going. I had to go into sheep, I had to go into everything. I had no money, I had to go into sheep. I had bank loans to dump the neighbour land and everything. So I had to go into sheep. But there's one thing I keep saying all along, and I'm strong on it, that we should bring out a vaccine for cattle. After all, when we got COVID, they had a vaccine within 6 months. Where since 1954 we're at this TB, and every year it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah, but they are working on trials, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah, but how long is these trials taking? Like, it's all I thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We started off with TB in 1954. We're doing trials. Every time you listen to it, we're doing trials. So it's going on this last 40 years trials. We still have got no further on. The guy says when COVID came in, within a few months they had a vaccine. So what's the difference in TB? Can we not get vaccine? What is wrong that they can't get vaccine for TB? That's what we're looking at.
Let's jump to, I suppose, matters European and something that will be keenly felt by your sector when it comes to Mercosur and like the possibility of 99,000 tonnes of beef coming from the Mercosur bloc at a 7.5% tariff rate under this trade agreement. I suppose, given what's happening over in France at the moment, it could be detrimental to our case, you know, at a European level, and getting support for our concerns at the European table as well, because there's a lot of different factors at play when it comes to Mercosur, and beef is just one, Sean.
Yeah, the big thing with Mercosur is where France is going now, like you says, it could turn the table. France is totally against it. But we're not stuck with it just yet now. I was on Kieran Maloney this morning. He reckons if we can get 30 MEPs out of Italy, which he reckons we can, and the Irish government, which are getting hard. The biggest problem with our government is we're getting hard to get the MEPs to sit down and say we're going to vote this, we're going to vote that way. They won't tell us. All I hear is everyone say we won't have it in its present form. Now, we can all talk away. There's a 10% in if our price goes down below a certain level.
So these are the safeguards, Sean, that the EU has brought forward to maybe allay our fears. And are you convinced?
No, because that 10% that they're talking about, that's probably a world market price, right? So we're getting $7.50 now a month for beef. You take world market price is $4.50. So we have to come back as a country to €4 in order to get this 10%. So that ain't going to happen. So they know they're safe there. Like another thing, what will happen is if Mercosur comes in, it's going to flood Europe with beef and chicken. Like it's not alone beef. Between chicken and beef and all, we reckon by 2030 it will be 550,000 tonnes coming in. Between chicken, the whole lot, beef, the whole. So you're talking about.
Katie, you're nodding there. Are you concerned about Mercosur?
It is. Like, it's a really big issue for the next generation coming on. Like, it's something that you're going to have to worry about, like competing and stuff like that. And like, we are self-sufficient in like the likes of chicken. I know beef like mightn't be too much, but like chicken, we're so self-sufficient and stuff like that. Like, it's okay for that. But if this comes in, like, younger people have to worry about it more so, because we might be farming longer and trying to get into farming more than the older kind of generation.
Yeah, and as you say, Katie, it's about confidence, because there's plenty of choices for young people now. We're practically full employment in this country, and the world is at their feet. You know, there's lots of different choices for people from farm families and from people in rural areas as well, and people from urban areas who do go into farming as well. We have to remember that. There's plenty of people I've met along the way who never grew up on a farm but want to go farming. So, you know, something like the Mercosur trade deal, it's in the background there as well about confidence and your longer term plans.
Well, if like you're trying to plan your next whatever 5-year, 10-year moves, like, and something like this is hanging over you, you want security in your future. Like, if you're thinking, okay, right, in the next 10 years I'm going to have a family, well, I want my family to grow up farming. Well, if you're not sure yourself where you're going in the next 10 years, well, how can you be sure for your future generations and for yourself on what is going to happen? And it just needs clarity on the situation for the people coming up and coming into the sector, that they can feel a sense of security. Like, I think that's also leading to a lot of people immigrating, and we're losing a lot of our future generations. And then we're going to have to rely on the rest of the world population to come in. Like we've seen it in the health sector. We're relying on other countries to come in and try and help us. Like,
for those labour shortages, yeah.
For labour shortage, because all of our, I know from side me, my brother's in Australia, and I think there's 10 houses up our road. There's a child from each house in Australia, and they all live together over there. But that's so many young people from our area had to immigrate, and so many people that could be farming, but they have no security and no clarity on what is happening.
It's like one community of young people being transported over to the other side of the world from Ireland, and settling up there.
Maybe people going over there to work on farms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a better, you're getting better pay, maybe better treatment, stuff like that over there, because you know what stands, because they don't have the worry of this coming and looming in the background.
Sean, the budget is coming up. I'm sure that you have a wish list. It's like a letter to Santa, a letter to Martin Hayden. What have you asked for?
The big wish, while generation renewal was the biggest wish we've wanted for the young people. Actually, we asked for several different things, cuts and VAT and so on, but generation renewal was the big thing, because like we see with farming, unless we can get generation renewal up and running right away, I don't mean 2 years' time, see right away, we're going to lose another generation of farmers, and we don't want to see that. We're also looking that there will be a viable living for all farmers. This thing of talking about, like Katie says it there, for the last 10 years, farmers weren't viable. Farms weren't viable for anyone. And that left the young people, they left off the farms because there's no viable living to be there. They went for a mortgage you couldn't get, or farming. You're farming full time, no way. It's a job, you got your mortgage. We look for, another thing we're looking for is building a one-off houses for farmers' sons and daughters. They have to get planning permission. We're looking for that.
Planning is a big issue, isn't it, in rural areas, and securing planning on the family sites and on the family farm as well.
Yeah, but we put in for several things. Like, you could talk all day on what we put in for, but that is two of the main points we wanted. We wanted to see that with the young people coming back to farming, or being I don't mean coming back, but if they wish to come back to farming, that they come back and that there would be a viable living there for them. The thing on nature restoration and all that, we want to see a fund coming in for that. I had a meeting in Kildare there only 2 weeks ago, and we learned the Netherlands MEPs was over, one of them, and the Netherlands embassy was over, they want us over it. And then in the Netherlands, we're talking, they want to re-wet our lands, right? That's fair enough. But in the Netherlands, they paid 1,400 an hectare for re-wetting to a certain depth, and from the other depth down, they paid 700 euros an hectare. So the way they looked at that, it was that they could farm away as well. The way they looked at it was a salary for farmers. That's the way they looked at it. It wasn't a scheme, it wasn't out, it was a salary. So the main thing we looked for in the budget was that if we wanted to see incentives coming in, these schemes needs to go, like I said, incentives coming in is the main thing we want to see for both young farmers, older farmers, retired, so on. We want to see some sort of incentive scheme coming in, because like I says, the schemes that's there at the moment isn't working. We look for more for the subsidy for cows, for certain age of bullocks, as you bought them on 9 months, 18 months, that there be a scheme there for them, and that's.
And I suppose when we talk about money as well and talk about schemes, I suppose the home of all of our schemes is CAP. And, you know, we're looking beyond 2027. I mean, the current CAP it's nearly old news now, because we're all looking to the future. The negotiations, the horse trade and the cattle trading around the table in Brussels, it's ongoing, Sean. And there's a lot of pulling and dragging at the overall EU budget. And, you know, like Christoph Hansen, the EU Commissioner for Agriculture, he seems to be tuned in to what farmers are looking for, but he's an uphill battle as well, you know, getting his kind of portion of the pie, for want of a better word. And how do you see it panning out over the coming months? You know, they have promised, you're talking about red tape there and simplifying, you know, schemes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Have you confidence in all of what you're hearing from Brussels at the moment?
All I can say is the cap, like they're talking about being cut 25% or 15% or 25%, but we are making it out it's 30% cut that we're going to have. It's not 25, it's a 30% come. Mr. Hansen, as we call him, or Commissioner Hansen, I was talking to him. Certain ways I believe in some of the things he does, certain ways I don't, but everyone won't agree with everything you say. But like we're talking about 30% less, but it's not alone that 30% less. Since it came in first, with inflation and everything, it's down 65-70%.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's not so like there's very little there to give out. Like they're talking about our government, like you talk to them, and the way he looks at it, he wants to see the most we give to generation renewal, and he wants to see give to suckler farmers and sheep farmers, and what he calls it full-time farm. But another thing I disagree with him, he wants that farmers over 65 years of age throw themselves under the boat and forget about them. That can't be done, because most of our, like we're starting, our average age of farmers in this country is around 60 years of age at the moment. We can't throw them under a bus at 65 years age, tell them there's no money.
Well, if Commissioner Hansen was here, we wish he was, of course, coming to the ploughing, but I'm sure he'd argue maybe otherwise with the phrase of being thrown under a bus. But look, we'll be covering, obviously, the CAP negotiations here on Agriland over the coming months ahead, because definitely it's where we need to be looking to is beyond 2027 at this stage. Sean McNamara, the ICSA president, thank you so much for joining us. And Katie Cooney, a young farmer from County Cavan. Definitely, I think, Sean, you'll agree with me, the future is bright if we've people like Katie
yes,
in the
very
sector.
good.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say to everyone here, ICSA is having a Mercosur protest on November the 13th outside the door in Dublin. We'd like you all to come support us on the day. We started the protest at Mercosur and we intend to finish it the same way. Now there's a petition up the way there in our, whether you go or not, in our
in the stand
in the stand there's a petition, and we'd like every farmer to sign it. We're going to sit around to the mask and sign as well, that we can hand it in to our MEPs, our Minister for Agriculture and all. So lads, I'd ask you for your support on November the 13th about in Dublin. Thanks very much, and thanks Ashley for having us on here.
No problem, and no doubt there's great toasted sandwiches, we've been told as well, at the ICSA tent. So if you're tuned in online, you might want to go down there for a toasted ham and cheese before you go from Screggan. We're going to go back out onto site to see what else is happening outside of toasted sandwiches right now. Here by John Cassidy from SVG Ventures. John, you're very welcome here to the Agriland tent at the National Ploughing Championships.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about SVG Ventures?
Yeah, so we're an early stage investor in Agri Tech. So we've invested in about 100 companies over the past 10 years, all that have innovative solutions that are tackling ag tech and agriculture. So we've been investing in this space for a very long time. I'm personally based in Toronto in Canada. We've brought over 10 of our investment companies. And because we're an early stage investor, we also have programmatic activity that help our companies find out where opportunities exist in new markets. So obviously Ireland, I'm from here, but it's a huge access point to Europe. It's an over $400 billion market, and a lot of the companies have come from North America, from Canada specifically, to find out opportunities in the European space. And what better place to come than the Ploughing Championships? I think many events we struggle to find customers, but I think about 300,000 people come through the doors of the Ploughing Championships every year. So there's nothing like this in North America. So we brought them all over from various regions across Canada, and we're now here. It's amazing.
So this is all about making connections across the Atlantic between Canada and Ireland and the ag tech companies on both sides. And look, I mean, as you said, there's a huge amount of variety here across different companies. Yep. So are you seeing link-ups being made already here?
Oh, it's been incredible. Like, our companies have made a bunch of connections. Obviously, look, technology and innovation only solves one thing, but to get into a new market, you need to be here. You need to build connections. You need to build trust. You need to build your brand. And what better way to do it? To be on the ground, meeting customers, meeting investors at the Enterprise Ireland Innovation Arena, and yeah, just being here and understanding what the market is and how we can penetrate it.
So you're involved in venture capital as well, and you're here with SVG Ventures having a look at some startups, I would imagine, here, and early stage companies, and you're looking to invest and to back these companies.
Yeah, we're investing right now. We're on to our fourth fund. We have a $75 million fund. We met about 10 or 11 Irish early stage ag tech companies yesterday. Yeah, some interesting follow-up conversations are going to happen there. Obviously, being Irish, I have a personal connection with the region. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, we are. We're looking to invest, and we're super active. As I said, we've invested in over 100 companies in this sector at a very early stage. Yeah, and we're looking to do more.
Excellent. Well, enjoy your time here at the National Ploughing Championships, and thank you for bringing the Canadians along. It adds a whole other international element to the Ploughing Championships.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and thank you so much.
Welcome back to the Agriland live stream. We're at row 10, stand 223, and live in our Agriland studio we have Lou McDonald, leader of Sinn Féin. Thank you very much for joining us at Plowing 2025. Mary Lou, it's been a busy year since I last spoke to you on this stage this time last year. In amongst that, there was a possibility that you might be going for the highest office in the state, and we've just come off the back of that, and there was rumours that you might put your name forward for the Oris. I will just stick with the presidential election for the moment before we move on to farming. And tell me, has Sinn Féin decided if they're going to back a candidate, even put forward a candidate at this stage now?
Well, firstly, Stella, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here again with you. So we have had a very long consideration around what we do in this campaign, recognising on the one hand the importance of the role of Uachtaráin na hÉireann. The job is important. It matters who occupies that role, that they represent the country with distinction and dignity, that they're in touch with the realities of ordinary people's lives. And for our purposes, we really want to see somebody in the Oris who has the back of younger people in particular. I think that is just really, really important. So we've talked over the last number of weeks around all of that, but we're conscious also as the lead party of opposition that our primary duty is to keep working, to hold the government to account, to keep them under pressure, to bring different ideas and solutions, and to work to a place where, come the next election, there is an alternative, but not just that, a better alternative, a more effective alternative. So we're balancing out those two things. We have essentially two options: to run our own candidate or to back another, the other being Catherine Connolly. So we've explored all of those. I'm going to bring a proposal to the Sinn Féin leadership on Saturday. We will make our announcement then, and whichever road we travel, we're going to be very active in this campaign. And just to say to people who are taking an interest in things, and I've heard some in the media and some of our political colleagues say, oh, they're very slow, and actually our timing is on the nose, because the campaign will begin on the 24th of September with the close of nominations. And then polling day is October the 24th. That's just under 5 weeks of campaigning. And believe me, people will have plenty of time to scrutinise, to consider, and to make their democratic decision. Let me say this also. I don't believe that parties of government who have failed so badly in so many ways should be rewarded or encouraged or endorsed by returning their candidate to the Oris. I also don't think it's democratically healthy to have the parties of government holding the office of Taoiseach and Taoiseach and everything else, and the Oris. I think one of the great merits of previous Uachtaráin, President Higgins, for example, is the fact that he was independent from the government of the day. I think that's a very, very healthy thing. So we will make that case in the course of the campaign.
Well, for example, you can't exactly say, you know, candidates such as Fianna Fáil's Jim Gavin has been ensconced in Fianna Fáil politics up to this point. A lot of people think, oh, he's coming from, I suppose, ordinary society, and he was a GAA manager and so on, so that it's one step removed from the political sphere.
But here's the thing. The moment that you accept the nomination of a party of government and you join that political party, you can't disentangle yourself from the politics of who they are and what they're at, because rest assured that the return of a Fine Gael or a Fianna Fáil candidate will say to Simon Harris or Micheál Martin, you're doing a great job, lads. It will be taken as a political endorsement. And I don't think that is correct. I think far better to have a person succeed, Michael D. Higgins, as Uachtaráin, a person who is fair and talented and capable and able to do the job, and also independent from the government of the day. But we'll debate that. By the way, I know Jim Gavin, I'm a dub. I mean, 5 in a row, 6 in a row, huge All-Ireland success. So let me commend him for that. But each of the candidates that are backed by political parties, they're political candidates. That's how this works. It's a political contest.
Okay, well, I could go on about the presidential, but we're not here to debate the presidential election at the moment. We're here to talk about farming. We're at Plowing 2025. And this time last year, when I spoke to you, you very vehemently said that Sinn Féin is for farmers. It's a party that really knows about the grassroots of this country and what, issues are affecting them, and that you would fight tooth and nail to ensure that they, whether it's in budgets or in policy, that, they are really considered. Looking back on the 12 months, we have spoken to a lot of farmers in different parts of the country, and criticism will come of all political parties, the ones in government and the ones in opposition. Can you stand over what you said this time last year, where you would vehemently fight for farmers' rights and say they're in a much better place because of the actions your party has taken?
Well, I think that people can look and judge for themselves as soon as the 7th of October, because as the saying goes, talk is cheap. At a point, people have to kind of put their money where their mouth is. So the question will be who comes up trumps for farming, for agriculture, but also for rural communities more broadly in respect of supports for people facing into a cost of living crisis, facing all of the constraints and challenges that face producers at this time. So, for example, we talked, I think last time, Stella, about our proposal for a commission on the family farm, because I'm very aware that succession is a huge issue. Bringing young people into farming is a huge issue. The government didn't go for our commission on the family farm, which would have been a bulkier and a more substantive initiative. But they did commission a report in terms of generational succession. There are measures and proposals in that, including cash supports for younger farmers, for older farmers. There's going to be a test now for government to see whether or not they actually action those recommendations, whether or not they put the money in that is required to ensure that we get the average age of farmers down. And it's not in any way, I'm no spring chicken myself, as you can see, it's not in any way to disregard the contribution and efforts of older people, and experienced and wise people. But we need youth, and we need that generational renewal. I made a commitment in the course of the campaign on behalf of Sinn Féin that we would work in terms of the nitrates derogation. We've continued that work. We will continue that work, keeping the pressure on government to ensure that they engage, not just engage with the issue, but engage actively with the issue. So that means not doing Zoom meetings. It means actually showing up in Brussels and impressing upon the European system the importance of this derogation for Ireland. And I also made a commitment in respect of the Mercosur trade deal. And just to be clear, we're not against trade. I mean, we're an island people, we're an island economy. Trade, of course, is necessary for our prosperity and for us to achieve. But the Mercosur deal, to anybody who cares to scrutinise it at any level, flies in the face not just of securing and protecting Irish farmers and producers, but also the environmental and regulatory standards that the system domestically and internationally, you know, promotes and in fact insists that people comply with. So we've made that position clear, and we think the government needs to be firmer and needs to be more explicit with Commissioner von der Leyen and others in terms of the Irish position. So we're going to keep working on
Well, it is a very political argument, and obviously there's trade and economy very much with the bigger superpowers, well, maybe not superpowers, but stronger countries that have a stronger leverage and I suppose greater skin in the game in terms of cars and so on, you know. Yes. And the government would argue, and I'm not defending the government, I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here, that they have brought over the Environment Minister, they have brought over, or the Commissioner, DG Envy's delegation has been over. Minister McConaughey, prior to Minister Martin Hayden, has been back and forth the whole time. The farm organisations here have strongly sent delegations of their own to Brussels to try and I suppose push the case for Mercosur not to be adopted in its current form. We had MEP Billy Kelleher in here the last day in the strongest possible terms, saying he and his party and the grouping that he's part of in Europe have fought to get changes at the very least to Mercosur. So what has Sinn Féin done on a European footing?
Well, obviously we're not in government, so we don't have, and this is the critical access that government ministers have that differentiates them from the rest of us, because it's not alone that they can lobby or influence, they're actually at the decision-making table. But I mean, our record in terms of Mercosur is long-standing at a European level. You can look to the record of our members of the European Parliament, and we've come at it from 2 points of view. On the one hand, the needs and the protection of Irish producers, for sure, and also the wider canvas, which is around actually the system honouring its own proclamations around climate change and protecting the environment and not destroying the rainforest. I mean, to me, it just makes absolutely no sense for us to talk, as we must, about how we collectively as society deal with the climate change emergency on the one hand, and then sign up to a deal that flies in the face of those objectives. That, to me, doesn't
well, the EU, I suppose, would argue it has brought in the EUDR, the European Deforestation Regulation, which says we can't take products into the block from areas where it has been deforested.
Can I tell you, Stella, I've heard the European system argue lots of things. I've heard them argue that black is white. They'll argue what they'll argue to get the result that they want. The job for Ireland and for everybody representing this country, whether it's domestically or in Europe, is not to become Europe's man or woman in Ireland. You have to be Ireland's man or woman here and in Europe, and stand very firm, because the world is changing, it's challenging, I acknowledge that. These are not straightforward tasks, irrespective of who's in government, but you have to come from the right premise first.
Mary Lou, before I let you go, one final question. A couple of years ago, commentators, and I think it was pretty obvious in the public mood, that Sinn Féin seemed to be on the crest of a wave, and the wave has seemingly receded. There's a rise in what some might call more far-right views in this country at the moment. Is there a bit of an identity crisis in Sinn Féin at the minute?
Absolutely not. Sinn Féin is an Irish Republican party. We are the party of Irish freedom and reunification. We're a party of social justice, fairness and opportunity for men and women, rural, urban, inner city, and so on. No, we were on the crest of a wave. Politics is a bit like everything else in life. There's dynamics and cycles that come into play. There's a rule of political gravity. What goes up must come down. It's an inevitability. And we made some mistakes ourselves, of that there's no doubt, but the political climate changed, and we had to work our way through that. We didn't have the election I hoped that we would have. I had hoped that we would be in government, leading a new government. It wasn't to be, but I can tell you I am more determined than ever that we lead on to that. And as regards, just a final comment, on the idea of kind of like far-right views, there's no doubt that there is a section of Irish society, I think it's very small, of people who have views that you might call far right ideologically. But what I actually hear isn't that. What I hear is people looking to the country, looking to the challenges, looking at the fact that our young people and others can't get a sustainable roof over their head, access to childcare, healthcare, the way in which people with disabilities, particularly children, have been failed so badly. And people ask the question, well, if things are not working now, how can we manage with more and more people? And I just don't think that the government in particular, or politics, has answered that question clearly or fairly enough. Irish people are decent, absolutely decent. And I believe that we remain a very welcoming and a very, very fine country. And I also think people are entitled to ask questions, to raise worries, and not be called far right.
Mary Lou McDonald, Sinn Féin, thank you very much for joining us on the live stream. Sorry we're caught for time. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you so much. Well, we're almost coming to the end of our live stream here on day 3 of Ploughing 2025, and the rain has just started, but it held off for 2 2/3 days, so we can't complain at that. It has been a very successful ploughing, and who better to tell us how successful that ploughing has been except for Anna-Marie McHugh from the National Ploughing Association. She joins us here in the Agriland stand. But first, I think we might go back out just to check before we finish up the live stream. We might pop out to our last couple of roving reporters outside and then come back here. We will have a lovely chat with Anna-Marie.
So we're down at the SensorTech and ALFCO tent at the National Ploughing Championships 2025. I'm joined with Rachel Cooper of SensorTech and Declan Fowley of ALFCO. So Declan, I'll start with yourself. Do you want to just tell us a bit about ALFCO?
So ALFCO was created in 1979 by Kieran Kerrigan and Pat McMahon. So they're over 40 years in business, and we employ about 35 people based in Trim, County Meath.
Very good. And I suppose, look, you've got into a kind of a partnership arrangement with SensorTech. So do you want to just tell us a bit about that venture?
Yeah, so in the last couple of years we've teamed up with SensorTech to create auto drafting for our customers through our drafting gates. So we work very close with NEDAB and SensorTech to give that solution to farmers.
And just tell us a bit about the drafting gate then, and how it kind of helps SensorTech with their venture as well.
So we design and manufacture those gates in Trim. So we have full control over all the electronics and the functions of the gate, and then we tie that in through our mobile phone app to give auto drafting to all the customers that have SensorTech collars.
And then just tell us a bit about then, just is there a good appetite then for investing this year in the gates and in the technology, I suppose?
Oh, there's massive interest in the technology of being joined together of the collars and the gate as a single unit. So that's the technology that we find the customers chasing.
Okay, brilliant. And Rachel, I'll move to you. So I suppose you're over kind of the support side of things and dealing with the farmers. So do you want to just kind of talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm working with the support for SensorTech. So there's 3 of us there, myself, Sean and Andrew. I suppose we stride ourselves in offering the best support to our customers. We're always on the end of the phone. So I suppose basically when a customer buys a system, the guys will go out and install it, and then either myself or the 2 lads will go out on farm and do one-to-one training with them. And we'll call again if necessary, and we're always on the end of the phone, either WhatsApp. So we're like that.
Very good, very good. And I suppose in terms of that support, when if something happens maybe to an ALFCO gate or maybe there's an issue with the SensorTech, who is dealing with that? Where does that support come from?
So I suppose if there's an issue with the app or something, they'll ring us. Now we're all kind of working together. I can kind of help solve problems with the gate, and ALFCO are able to help solve problems with the app. So whoever they ring, they'll definitely get an answer. And if it's something that I can't answer, I'll give Declan a ring, and he'll be able to liaise with the customer and vice versa.
Very good. And Declan, I suppose just speaking from that support for yourselves, dealing with farmers and everything, like so when farmers are going to invest, the first thing they look at is support. So
yeah, so the fact that we manufacture the gates ourselves, so we know them inside out, and we have all that components on stock. And of course, being a grass-based system, all that support needs to be there from beginning of April right into the beginning of July. That's when all the peak demand is on the systems.
Okay, so this year then, did you see a good demand for gates and the collars, I suppose?
Oh, massive demand for gates and collars this year, yeah.
Very good. And I suppose, Rachel, back to yourself then, I suppose obviously you have that smart tag ear and now the collar as well.
Yes.
So is there what have you kind of been seeing on inside the farm gate? What are farmers kind of going for, and I suppose, the support behind them as well.
Yeah, sure, look, I suppose they've been doing the collar from day one, so I suppose, look, that's more so what we're used to dealing with, but we can see now that from now on there has been a good bit of interest in the last few days, people coming in and they are more interested in the ear tag. Now, they work the same way and we'll be able to support the same way, so it'll still all be going through NEDAP now, so there'll be actually no difference in using an ear tag system versus a neck tag system, so we're comfortable that we'll be able to support both systems. Yeah,
very good. And Declan, I suppose, go back to yourself, I suppose if a farmer is kind of thinking of maybe improving efficiency, reducing labour on farm, I suppose the gate and the technology, what would you be kind of recommending? Because there's a couple on the market, so what really is different about the Alfco system and the sensor tech system?
The main focus of the Alfco gate is that we do not miss a cow. So we want to provide 99.9% accuracy when we're drafting cows. We know, like in the grass-based system, if we miss a draft, then that cow is not going to be served again for 3 weeks, because you're not going to go out 2 or 3 kilometres and bring a cow back in. So accuracy is our #1 goal.
Okay, very good. So you're nearly certain that the gate is close to 100% accurate, and that's what you want to be selling to farmers?
Yeah, we're selling 99.9% accuracy.
Brilliant.
Once we go out, fit the gates, we talk to the customer through it, we show them linking up the tags. We'll go out, get them all trained in before the beginning of April to make sure they understand the gate, so that when breeding comes, 100% of the cows will be drafted.
And Rachel, obviously for yourself, you're dealing with farmers a lot on the support side of things. So what do you see is the real driver for them to go with Sensor Tech and Alfco?
Sure, look, knowing that someone's on the other end of the phone and they're going to answer you whatever time of the day it is. I suppose during the spring the phones will start ringing very early in the morning, and the odd time they'll go late at night. And for a farmer to know that we're not going to turn the phone off when it comes to 5 o'clock is a brilliant thing. There's a couple of us on the road. If it's very urgent, one of us will be passing. You know, we make that our effort, because a product is only as good as its after sales service, and that's what we stride ourselves in.
Brilliant. Look, Rachel, Declan, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, and hope you keep selling and dealing with farmers, and that support is always there. So thanks very much.
Perfect.
So that's all. We'll go back to the Agriland tent.
Hello and welcome back to the live stream here on Agriland at the Agriland stand at the Ploughing Championships here in Screggan, County Offaly. We're wrapping up our live stream. It's been such a busy 3 days. We've had so many guests. We've had so many conversations with people. But with the success of this year's ploughing, who could we be better to talk to than Anna-Marie McHugh from the National Ploughing Association? We've nabbed you for a few minutes. The Taoiseach is around. You're due to be with him, but thank you for joining us just to wrap up, and let's talk about, Anna-Marie, the success of this particular ploughing. First of all, let's talk about the ploughing competitions. As far as I'm aware, I'm looking at the time here, the competition's now over. Winners to be announced a little later on, isn't that right?
Yes, now we've had some very exciting results over the last 2 days, you know, different names appearing, which has been great. So a lot of memories going home from Offaly as a place that you won in All Ireland. I was out with the Taoiseach in the senior test matches with the Cavernaland test and the conventional test, and those competitions are happening, and the standard is very high. We talked to 3 or 4 competitors, and it's very difficult to know where it's at. The winners there today qualify for the World Contest next year and for the Europeans and the International. So very, very stiff competition. Yeah. But the ground looked lovely, and they've had a great day of ploughing.
Brilliant, and we'll have the results on Agriland later as well. They'll be very excited, especially going to the World Ploughing. The crowds, let's talk about the crowds this year. Last week, I think everyone was apprehensive because we all did think the weather was going to be much worse. But wow, the crowds this year have been absolutely fantastic so far, Anna-Marie. Yeah,
it's really been good, you know, and I suppose we did expect today to kind of fall back a bit. Now, I haven't checked the statistics. Sometimes people say it can look great, but, you know, you have to take into account the number of buses that are here, the number of people that came on the trains, etc. Thursday wouldn't be usually our biggest day, but there's some crowd out there, in fairness. And we were so lucky. We've had a bit of drizzle in the last hour, but it seems to be gone again. We couldn't have been luckier with the way the weather has come. And on Tuesday night, you know, there was 17 mil, I think, of rain, and there was more forecast for today, so massively fortunate. The Child of Prague definitely has worked.
Oh, absolutely, definitely.
It's outside the office of the NPA.
Fantastic, and that's the exact place for it. Now, just in terms of going forward, this has been a really successful 2025 for the National Ploughing Association. I know you previously mentioned that very soon, or even if you can give us any indication, will we be back here next year or even over the next 3 years, Anna-Marie?
I'd love to be able to see Stella. We just don't have confirmation of that at the minute. We're looking at our options for the next 3 years at the moment, and we're quite anxious that we would be in a position to announce 26, 27 and 28 together. That's the kind of plan.
Isn't that great though, to have that certainty?
It is, and we haven't done that in a long time. So that's why we're taking a little bit of time to actually be in that position. I suppose, we're kind of finding that in recent years, the event is so big coming to a county that it's really important to give them a chance to prepare and to promote the fact it's coming. And even from an international visitor's point of view, that you can do that. So that's kind of the feel that we've been getting, and that's why we're looking at that option going forward.
And before I let you go, Anna-Marie, tell me about why ploughing endures. Why is it so attractive still in 2025? Why, when people say that we're all becoming one more step removed from an actual farm, why it's still so much fun for people to come here? Yeah, and not just fun, also on a business nature.
Absolutely. I think for us, I stand to be corrected, but for us, I think ploughing is still at the core of the event. That's what we were when we started in 1931. And the reason that exhibitors started coming to the event is because the farmers were there and they were taking part, they were looking at the ploughing, so there was a potential of doing a bit of business. We haven't changed the core of what we're about. We're about the Ploughing Championships and an agricultural exhibition. So that's really what it's about. I have to say we're thrilled that we've quite a few livestock back with us this year. We decided on a different programme, a different way to have livestock to coming and going during the week. That has worked really, really well. But things change every year and evolve, but then there's a lot of things at the ploughing that never change, that people have seen here 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's what really, really important, keeping grounded on the things that are part of the association. And there's really no fear of the event insofar as we have members from all over the country, and they're great for grounding you. And our volunteers that have come here this week from all over to make the event happen. And I think that's a lot about what the ploughing is about. And there's an ownership. Rural Ireland really has an ownership. And you can see that this week. People are just stopping and saying, thanks for doing this. We're delighted. It's great. And that's just really very positive.
Absolutely. And it's great to end on a positive note like that. You are under time pressure, so we let you go. Anna-Marie McHugh, thank you very much. That's Anna-Marie McHugh from the National Ploughing Association. And please do pop off, because I know you have to. I know you're under pressure, and we really appreciate it.
Massive thank you to Agriland for the live stream. The number of comments that we're getting on the social media, the number of comments we get into our stand, people that just can't get here, or there's a certain day they can't come, it really, really is massively important. We're so grateful to Agriland.
Our absolute pleasure. Our absolute pleasure. That's the aim of Agriland, is to provide access to everyone, regardless of where they are or how they view us. So thank you. Anna-Marie. So that's all from our live stream online. That doesn't mean that that's all from our Agriland tent. We will continue here in the actual tent for the next half hour. I think we have another interview with the ICMSA President, Dennis Drennan. We're also going to have a live recording of the Farming Week podcast. Really, really popular podcast, summing up everything, all the news stories, all the goss, all the fun, all the interesting tidbits from the week of ploughing. If you don't hear it live here, you can hear it live on you're recorded on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts really, and on the Agriland app, so make sure that you download it. I better nip off because everyone is under time pressure to get the podcast done here. We've so much more work to do here at the Ploughing on the day 3 in 2025. Just a very brief thank you to the entire Agriland team who made it possible. They have worked like Trojans for the last number of weeks and months to get this off the ground and make it so successful. Particular mention to our Managing Director, Cormac Farrelly, who owns Agriland, a beef farmer himself, who cares so much about making sure that you at home get to see what's at the ploughing if you can't make it here yourself. So thank you so much to Cormac and the team, and a very big thank you to our colleagues in Media and News Talk as well, who made it an extra special event and provided our audience with so much more as well this ploughing. Thanks so much, and stay tuned in the Agriland tent if you're here at the ploughing, and this is coming up on your phone. Pop down row 10, stand 223 for the live recording of the Farming Week.